Greetings, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I have drifted into the Underworld. The Star Wars Underworld. I have a bad feeling about this.
Here we go. We must go to the lower levels. The Underworld.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
You're after something.
Ben.
Since I've started the Underworld, I've met so many great friends.
Chris.
I grew up in the 1990s, and mall packaging is nostalgic for me.
Dominic.
What I love most about Star Wars is that it's fun, and it's all-round good times.
So, this is where the fun begins.
May the Force be with us.
This thing really moves!
I like this!
I can't believe you came all this way to see me.
What's up, Star Wars fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Star Wars Underworld podcast, your source each and every week for the latest breaking Star Wars news and discussion. And this week on the show, we're going to be breaking down that massive spread of amazing photos and interviews revealed in Vanity Fair's newest issue. Also, it's past time. Someone asked Bryce Dallas Howard to make a Star Wars movie. And Star Wars Celebration Anaheim is just 1 week away, and we'll be answering all of your questions. We're going to talk about all that and so much more in this episode. My name is Chris, and joining me, he's got his celebration badge ready to go, Mr. Dominic Jones.
Yes, hello, Chris. Hello, Ben. Hello, Annie Leibovitz. Hello, everybody. Yeah, I'm so stoked. I'm just getting ready for celebration. I've got my lanyard. I've got my badge. I'm all set. I'm so looking forward to it because a week from today, we'll have seen what was in that Lucasfilm showcase. We'll have spent our first day wandering the show floor. And right about now, in a week's time, we'll all be wandering across the street to the IHOP for the most important event of the day, the Star Wars Underworld Pancake Party, or whatever it is we're calling that thing, which believe it or not, is mostly sold out. Like, there's limited tickets still available, but to all of our slight surprise, we actually did reach a point today where we were technically sold out, quote unquote, and we've released a few more tickets. So if you're listening to this live or you're listening to this first thing on Friday or Saturday, you better you better act quick. The link will be in the description of the YouTube video of your Spotify or your Apple Podcasts, however you listen to this. You can go and grab your tickets. The tickets are free. It's a free event. We're not charging you anything to come and listen to us. But you come on over. We'll have some pancakes. We'll have a good time. It'll be fun. But yeah, a week from today, we'll all be at IHOP celebrating Star Wars together. I kind of can't believe it.
Thanks to you guys, I had to make a phone call earlier today, and I'm going to reenact it. It basically went like this. Hello, IHOP. So can you tell me about the fire code in Anaheim and how many people are allowed to be in a building? Okay, good. Thank you. That is what just happened.
Yeah, we've reached that point where we're like, what is the actual maximum? Because I was more worried originally about hitting like some sort of minimum. Like I'm like, we gotta get a certain number of people in there. Now it's more like it's not impossible that we'll be turning people away at the door. No, we won't be doing that. If you've got a ticket, you will get in. So it's on Eventbrite. It's in the description. Go get your free ticket, and we'll see you there for some all-round good times, which is what we're gonna have on this show tonight too.
Heck yes, and also joining us is Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
Yeah, it's it's hitting me. It's hitting me. I'm leaving in like 3 days. Gonna be on my way, and it's a week away that will actually be there and have already experienced a ton of things. Yeah, it's happening, guys. It really is. And then all of a sudden, Annie Leibovitz just comes out of the sky and then drops a whole ton of stuff on us, and wasn't expecting that. But yeah, we got a whole bunch of other stuff. I guess they couldn't do the whole spread during celebration. Or I mean, I would have been totally game Annie Leibovitz just coming out on stage and showing pictures. But I understand the whole logistics side of things. But yeah. Lots of surprises, a lot of stuff, a lot more stuff to talk about this week than I thought we would. So, yeah, it's going to be a great time.
Yeah, this whole Vanity Fair thing caught me kind of off guard. Like, I wasn't on the lookout for it. Like, with the previous ones for the sequel trilogy, we knew round about May there would be something. There would be new pictures. There would be a big article. There'd be all that stuff. And for this one, I just wasn't thinking about it. I was thinking like we'll just roll into Obi-Wan Kenobi, and then when it's time, we'll roll into Andor, and then Mando, and whatever else is left. But you know, it makes perfect sense, right? Like this, as we'll talk about, this is the current, and this is the present and the future of Star Wars is what we're looking at in those pictures. So it's a pretty exciting time.
It's crazy.
It is. So Hannah apparently bet her pancakes and who would be paying for them on what we were going to be wearing on the show.
Oh,
this week.
I don't like where this is going.
So let's find out if we're going to be paying for Hannah's pancakes or not. So first up is Ben, white t-shirt. I don't know about that.
I mean,
there's white on the t-shirt.
Yeah, but that's not a white t-shirt. If you showed up somewhere and you said, "Hey, is Ben around?" And I said, "Yeah, he's over there in the white t-shirt." You would not go over to him and be like, "White t-shirt guy."
But you know, she's still got two chances, and this one looks pretty good.
I mean,
Dom, yeah, SWU over shirt, blue hat, red maple leaf.
I mean, it's only partially red, but you know, we'll give you that one. I have to say, I'm probably the easiest one to guess because this has been my look since, let's say, October 2015. It hasn't changed. Just about every picture of me since then has been some variation of this. So, you know, fair play to her for noticing the pattern, but I perhaps not the most challenging of guessing games.
So she's 1 for 2. She needs one more for us to buy her pancakes. And I'm relatively predictable. I have like a couple things I have in my head, maybe 3 or 4 shirts that I wear. But not right today. Not right today. It is May now. It's a little bit too warm here because May on this side of the hemisphere, unlike it is down under for her, is a warmer. It's getting warmer in May. So the beanie's gone. It's the green hat. And to explain why I'm not wearing a Baby Yoda shirt, I had a very difficult decision to make today. Today is probably the most difficult day of every few years it comes, and it's when you're doing laundry before Star Wars Celebration Day. And I had to decide what Star Wars shirt I did not want to wear at Celebration, because whatever shirt I'm going to be wearing while doing the laundry is, of course, not going to be clean for Celebration. So I'm like, all right, well, I just have this generic Star Wars shirt. It just says Star Wars on it. There's no frills to it at all, nothing cute. So I'll wear this one while I'm doing laundry, and it'll still work for the show because it says Star Wars on it. But then I'll save all the other ones for the many days we're doing things at and before Star Wars Celebration. So
fair enough.
That was a good guess. At any other week, it might have been right, but
alas.
Laundry before Celebration. So
she was foiled by the hemispheres.
So Hannah might be buying her own pancakes, but I don't know. We'll give you a chance to redeem yourself. Maybe if you can guess what we will show up at the IHOP event, and maybe we'll buy your pancakes.
Gonna have to come up with something unexpected, which apparently would just be to not wear a hat. So I could do that and just throw everybody off.
Tom doesn't have a top to his head.
Yeah, no, it just doesn't exist.
It's just a brain. It's just a brain back there.
It's kind of gross, actually.
It's horrifying. Horrifying.
Oh man.
Ben was scarred for life the last time he saw me without a hat.
More horrific than that last Doctor Strange movie. Come on.
Oh my.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to know my look for Celebration for the IHOP party, I consider Wanda Maximoff to be a style icon. So about halfway through the movie, going with that look. That's what I'm going with. I mean,
What Dominic's not telling you is that he's pulling a Filoni. He manages to sneak around without the hat. Takes the hat off when he wants to blend in.
It's true. It's true.
That's hilarious. So we're gonna get back to Celebration talk and much more exciting stuff. Some plugs real quick. Make sure you subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. If not, we're on YouTube. Check us out. We go live every Thursday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern time with a pre-show for our patrons 30 minutes before that on the same channel. You can get the link by going over to patreon.com/the SWU and pledging at any level. You can also support us by super chatting with us on YouTube, and you can become a channel member over here. Also back at that Patreon is where you can find your SWU merch. Can't guarantee if you order tonight if it'll be in by Celebration. Probably not.
I'm pretty sure it's a no.
No, it's kind of one of those things where you have to be a patron for a little bit, and then they send it to you for being loyal.
But I will say, right, like, you know, we've been plugging this Patreon thing for a long time, and we always say, you know, it helps us out here. It helps us plan things and expand things. And if you listen to the show week to week, you may sometimes wonder, what does that actually look like? What does that actually mean? Well, you will all see next week what that looks like, because if not for that Patreon, the IHOP party likely either wouldn't exist or would look very different. So that's the sort of thing we're pulling off because of the support that you all throw us.
Another reenactment from earlier today. So IHOP, if we have 100 people show up, how much is that gonna cost? Okay.
And how much do we make on Patreon?
Yeah.
What do those super chats add up to? Yeah.
Oh man, it's gonna be a fantastic time. Also, check out the Culture Slate store, cultureslate.com/store. Merch from all the podcasts on the network is over there. It's where you can get your stuff from Star Wars culture and Iron Canon. And actually, Chatter Squadron has their own little spot too, where it's different. So check out their YouTube channel for links for their merch and everything over at Chatter Squadron. And that listener feedback email is swunderworld@gmail.com. That's where we got some of your questions from this week that we're going to be getting to about Star Wars Celebration. So never hesitate to drop us a line over there. All right.
Well, let's dive into things. And shockingly, the top story is not Star Wars Celebration, although we thought it would be for, 2 years until this point. We thought, oh yeah, the week before a Celebration, we'll just talk about Celebration. Nope. Vanity Fair. We've got the new cover of Vanity Fair and some new pictures from within. The excellent subtitle of this new issue of Vanity Fair is "The Rebellion Will Be Televised." Just A+ work. And the cover of the magazine features the stars of the next 4 Star Wars TV series. You got Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's up next. You got Diego Luna as Cassian Andor for Andor, which is going to be the second thing. Pedro Pascal back in his Mandalorian armor, promoting season 3, and Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka, promoting the next series, or the upcoming series Ahsoka. So there's a lot to get into, and there's a lot of great pictures that we will go through as we discuss the article which was written by Anthony Bresnikan. So I'm going to ask the two of you, where do you want to start? Because there's a lot of places we could go with this. We could go Obi-Wan Kenobi. We could go Andor. We could go Ahsoka. We could go The Acolyte. We could go Grammar Rodeo. We got Grammar
I could spend an hour on this dang cover. I mean,
let's go through whatever notes we have in order so we don't miss anything.
No.
I would say
let's pick. What are you most excited about? Let's not do the practical thing. Let's do.
You're asking me what I'm. Oh, that is so hard to. That's like, what am I most looking
Star Wars films? We got Solo, a Star Wars story we could talk about. There's more Mandalorian stuff.
Fair.
There's things you could do. What? Give us here. While you all pick what you're feeling, I'll go through the release windows for the upcoming series. I'll go
There
through
we go.
those, and I'll give the two of you a moment to catch your breath and decide what you want to talk about first, which series you want to talk about first.
All right.
So this is what the windows are for the series. Obviously, Obi-Wan Kenobi starts next week. Everybody knows that. Next up is Andor, which hits screens later this summer, or late this summer, so probably around August. Season 3 of The Mandalorian, reuniting Pedro Pascal's helmeted gunfighter with his little green ward, you know who. Voldemort's in this one? Oh, what a twist I was not expecting. Drops in late 2022 or early 2023. Next year, Rosario Dawson will lead this series, Ahsoka, playing the live-action version of the fan favorite Force wielder from the animation, who was once an apprentice to Anakin Skywalker. Slightly further off is the Acolyte, with a tale set about a century before the era of the Skywalkers. So we got Andor probably starting in August. Mandalorian probably starting in December. Maybe we could squeeze some Bad Batch in there somewhere in between.
Yeah, why are they not mentioning that? That's the rebellion too.
Yeah, and this is all about live action stuff.
Yeah.
There's no mention of this. There's no mention of Tales of the Jedi. There's no mention of anything else. This is live action we're dealing with here. So we got that. Then we'll have next year. We'll begin with most of season 3 of The Mandalorian. We'll move into Ahsoka, and then probably close out the year with the Acolyte. And then look ahead to Grammar Rodeo, perhaps late next year or early the following. So that's what we're looking at release schedule wise. All right, you've had a moment. What do you think? Where should we start? Ben, tell us.
All right, I am very intrigued by Andor, considering we learned the most about it here.
All right.
And we got basically our first look at that show in all this. And there you go. Yanni agrees.
All right. So we'll start with Andor, and we'll throw up this picture here as well.
And also, freaking Genevieve O'Reilly is Mon Mothma.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah. For everybody who's listening, we're looking at the picture that shows Ahsoka and Mando kind of on the center and the right, and then on the left you've got Cassian and Mon Mothma in her Andor look. So in the article, Diego Luna and Tony Gilroy both talk about Andor. Here's what the article says. Luna describes Andor as a refugee story, with desperate people fleeing the Empire at the full force of its power. It's the journey of a migrant, he says. The feeling of having to move is behind this story very profoundly and very strong. That shapes you as a person. It defines you in many ways and what you are willing to do. Gilroy breathes a deep breath and reveals a little bit more about Andor. Bresnikan really putting you in the moment of his Zoom calls with all of these people. This guy gave his life for the galaxy, right? I mean, he's consciously, soberly, and without vanity or recognition sacrificed himself. Who does that, he asks. That's what this first season is about. It's about him being really revolution averse and cynical and lost and kind of a mess. The story begins with the destruction of Andor's birth world, then follows him into adulthood when he realizes he can't run forever. His adopted home will become the base of our whole first season, and we watch that place become radicalized, Gilroy says. Then we see another planet that's completely taken apart in a colonial kind of way. The Empire is expanding rapidly. They're wiping out anybody who's in their way. By journey's end, Andor's path will be to block theirs. Hell yeah. I added that part, but yeah. I love it.
There you go.
I love it. This is everything ever since they announced Andor, or the Cassian Andor live-action television project for Disney Plus. It's been the one I've been, I think, the most subtly intrigued by, because Mandalorian has sort of the big sort of bombastic, like it's the first thing. Ahsoka and Obi-Wan are building off of really iconic characters that we spent a lot of time with. Andor picks up on a character that was created to really only exist in one movie, and you know that because he dies at the end of it. And so to tell more stories about him, you have to move backwards in time. And what are the questions that what are the questions that need answering? And it is, how does Cassian get to where he is at the beginning of Rogue One, which is somebody who is willing to kill and be killed in the name of the rebellion. And I love what both Diego Luna and Tony Gilroy are saying about what we're going to see about how he gets to that point, which is just fascinating stuff. And what is your guys' reaction to what is said in that article?
I mean, I think it's not just great from the perspective of how it's going to shape his character, because this definitely seems like a very character-driven series. But also, we're going to see a really good look at the arrival of the Empire and how the galaxy changes. And we're going to see it real time. And we're going to see it from the perspective of people who are living through it. I think, we obviously have seen many things set at this point in the dark times. And we've seen kind of a transitional stuff, like going from, Clone Wars to Bad Batch to Star Wars Rebels, for example. But those are all very much placed in a specific spot, and they internally they don't cover that wide a range of time as this show is going to cover, going from his childhood to his adulthood. So I think that this show will uniquely give us that development of the galaxy changing in one show that you probably would need to watch 2 or 3 other complete shows to get prior to this, or watch multiple Star Wars movies to get prior to this. So this is very much seems like this idea of the rebellion will be televised from the Vanity Fair article. That applies very directly to this show, where this is literally the rebellion television show. This is about why it needed to happen, and where it came from, and how it started, and then how it's going. And so I think, this is incredible. And it's also, I love how Star Wars is continuing to make things and have them not necessarily be the start point foundation, but the end point foundation. I think that's really cool. That's what the original trilogy was. It was an end point foundation. Most of the Star Wars made after that took place before it, and it still was an anchor that tied things in. Rogue One now, which is many, many people's favorite of the Disney films, is a great film to be that endpoint situation. Just like, you have Darth Vader dying and Return of the Jedi. You have Obi-Wan dying in New Hope. You have Yoda also dying in Return of the Jedi. There's all these characters that do die that are so great, but then all of them are just added so much onto later by the stuff that came out later. There's so much good Yoda stuff and Obi-Wan stuff and stuff with Anakin and Vader that came out after the 70s and 80s that took place before. This precedent that they're setting to take those great characters in that fantastic movie Rogue One and to delve more into them in this very character-based way is a brilliant decision. It makes Rogue One another tent pole that everything else is going to be under. And I think it's a really brilliant move to do this. And hearing more about this, it just sounds like they're really on the right path with the direction of this show.
Yeah, it's something that I think like Rogue One itself and Cassian himself has a pretty strong character arc in that movie. He's one of my favorite characters in that movie because he has a very distinct starting point in that he does a really bad thing, and you could characterize him almost as a bad dude that's doing, out here killing people and, killing informants and, doing some bad stuff for the sake of a good cause, and him learning to deal with that and actually do something good for a good cause and being willing to give up his life. And I like that Tony Gilroy is kind of emphasizing on okay, this guy literally died in service of this. That's a big deal. That's a big thing. And self-sacrifice is a huge theme in Star Wars. Many characters have done it, but not a lot of just random people. Just like we have a lot of Force users, a lot of big Jedi characters, but not just this random soldier seemingly that's just been in this fight since he was 6 years old. What's his thing? What's his deal here? And I like the idea of going back in time and exploring where this guy came from. And it sounds like we're going to go all the way back to the beginning, which I'm very excited about, and perhaps getting some separatist stuff with him, finding out, during the Clone Wars, whatever, even if it's, early Dark Time, I think getting him as a kid and getting more about his upbringing and what happened to him and what made him want to die on a beach because he sent some plans off to somebody else could be the hero. Like, that's a lot. So I think I'm getting more and more excited about this series as we learn about it, and obviously seeing Diego Luna and Mon Mothma. It's really starting to hype me up. And the fact that it's not that far away. We've been so focused on Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's just like, wow, okay, like end of something. Okay, bring it on, guys. I didn't realize it was coming that quick.
Yeah, it's close by. It's close by.
It's amazing.
One thing that sort of stood out to me in the quotes here, we hear about the Empire. Tony Gilroy says, the Empire is expanding rapidly. They're wiping anybody out who's in their way. And it made me think, between what Tony said and what Diego said, it made me think of Rose's dialogue in The Last Jedi, where she talks about the First Order coming in and taking control of her home planet and stripping it of resources. And I sort of feel like we're going to actually see what that looks like in this show. We're going to see how that actually plays out, not for Rose and Paige's homeworld, but for Cassian's homeworld, or for another world in the galaxy, because we've seen sort of what happens after that happens, right? We've seen on Lothal and Rebels, we sort of see where the Empire has come in and they've taken over, and everybody's living in Tarkin Town and all that stuff. We've seen the kind of aftermath of it, and we've seen what happens to people who come from that situation, again with Rose and Paige and their involvement in the Resistance in the sequels. But to actually sort of see what that is and how it happens, and to see, is it tanks in the streets? Is it something more sinister that's happening but kind of behind the scenes with the local governments and that sort of thing? I'm fascinated to see how this all plays out and what it actually becomes. So they've added in some really exciting elements, and we've talked about it before. It's just going to be a spy thriller. It's going to be a spy thriller in Star Wars. It's terrific.
So cool.
Terrific. All right. So that's more or less what we get from Andor. Chris, Ben picked what was first. You get to pick what's next. Where do we want to go?
So the series that we know the least about, that I'm the most intrigued about, is definitely the Acolyte.
The Acolyte.
And I definitely want to see what was said about this and this article.
All right. Here's what we got about the Acolyte. Again, reading from Anthony Bresnikan's article in I nearly said Entertainment Weekly. No, that's a few years ago now. In Vanity Fair.
2015.
Yeah. Another upcoming series, The Acolyte, reportedly starring Amanda Stenberg, aims to do that. I'm not sure what that is. It's from a previous portion of the article. The show is in the casting phase, but the writing is largely complete, says showrunner Leslie Headland, co-creator of the time-looping Netflix show Russian Doll. She has been planning it for 2 years, mostly from the confines of her home. Her dog and cat, who peek curiously from the background of the Zoom conversations, are certainly steeped in the concept of the galaxy's High Republic era, she says. But casual Star Wars fans who haven't been following the recent novels and comics might still be unaware. The Acolyte, Headland says, takes place roughly 100 years before The Phantom Menace. A lot of those characters haven't even been born yet. We're taking a look at the political and personal and spiritual things that came up in a time period that we don't know much about. My question when watching The Phantom Menace was always like, well, how did things get to this point? How did we get to a point where a Sith Lord can infiltrate the Senate and none of the Jedi pick up on it? Like, what went wrong? What are the scenarios that led us to this moment? Headland describes The Acolyte as a mystery thriller set in a prosperous and seemingly peaceful era when the galaxy is still sleek and glistening. We actually use the term Renaissance or Age of Enlightenment, she says. Jedi were not always ascetic monk-like figures living selflessly and bravely. The Jedi uniforms are gold and white, and it's almost like they would never get dirty. They would never be out and about, Hedlund says. The idea is that they could have these types of uniforms because that's how little they're getting into skirmishes.
Wow.
So, kind of an indictment of the Jedi Order in the High Republic era. It's fascinating listening to that after or reading that after having read Phase 1 of the High Republic books, because the Jedi in those books are really trying to be on the front line. They're trying to be out there and be a part of the galaxy. And yes, they have these really nice robes, but they consider those to be sort of ceremonial. And they'll wear them when they go to the opening of Starlight Beacon. But the rest of the time, they're wearing something much more utilitarian, if I can learn to speak again. And what we've seen over the first several books and comics of that series is them clearly thinking they're on the right path and they're doing the right thing, and having things kind of blow up in their face, literally in some instances. And now they're kind of retreating back. And this show seems to be set after the High Republic Publishing Initiative, which, looking at the timelines, might be interesting. We might be seeing that winding down around the same time that the Acolyte is coming out, which could leave some interesting potential for crossovers and that sort of thing. But I suspect that as the High Republic books continue to play out, one of the things we'll see is the Jedi evolve more into this ceremonial role that Leslie is describing. And in the one piece of art for this show that exists, the sort of the logo, it seems to very clearly be focused on the dark side perspective. And I think what will be unique about this show is that we're going to look at the High Republic through the eyes of the Sith in hiding, because that's been one element that has been absent from the books to this point, is they haven't been really involved. And I suspect as we move forward with the High Republic, we'll start to get hints and teases and more stuff that leads us in the direction of the Sith. And we might wind up in a situation where the High Republic books are the High Republic era, sort of from the Jedi's point of view, with a little hints at what's going on with the Sith. And the Acolyte might be the High Republic era or the late High Republic era from the Sith's point of view, with some hints at what's going on with the Jedi. The A story will be the Sith and the B story will be the Jedi, which could be really exciting and is kind of opposite of what we've had up until this point.
Yeah, wow, this brings up so many questions because, first of all, the groundwork for that is the anthology stories of the Clone Wars, because they switch perspectives in that very way. Some from the Jedi's perspective, some from the Sith's perspective. And those episodes of the Clone Wars that were very much from the Sith's perspective, like the ones about Savage Opress, Asajj Ventress, Count Dooku, Maul, and Sidious, were all some of the best episodes of the Clone Wars. Like they were anytime any of those characters were in an episode, you knew it was going to be good. And they were all very, very fantastic. Especially that arc when that last Mandalore arc before the show went on hiatus, amazing. And then also the Night Sisters, both Night Sisters arc, amazing. And so it would be amazing to see that in live action and see that in another era and see that in a way that really gives us so much more new information about the backstory for the Phantom Menace. It would very much be like the Darth Plagueis James Luceno novel, kind of almost retold in some ways with perhaps different characters and situations, but kind of that concept of that was the answer to those questions before of how did we get here with the Phantom Menace, and it was explaining those machinations of Plagueis and Tenebrius and how that all happened. So it'd be very interesting to see what of those themes Leslie pulls from for this show. But thematically, things get really intriguing here, because there is definitely a thing happening with Disney where there's a graying of characters. in general and on Disney
Mhm.
Plus. It's very much not always black and white. It's not always hero and villain. There's a lot of characters that are in the middle, a lot of characters where you almost have one side of them that's a villain and one side that's a hero, and it really depends. And so that
See,
it's interesting.
Moon Knight.
Yeah, exactly. So it would be very interesting to have a show from the perspective of 100% villains inside that overall movement that's going on, to have more realistic, relatable characters that aren't necessarily these archetypes. And so it makes me interested in, is this going to be a resurgence of the good versus evil archetype, that old Joseph Campbell stuff? And we're going to see more of that come back through this, and have like characters that are like pure, paragons of evil, like Sidious. Or are we going to have a more modern, nuanced take on the Sith that perhaps is a more sympathetic view of them? I would be very curious to see that, because just because Sidious is the paragon of evil doesn't necessarily mean that the Sith going back in their history would be. And perhaps that's how we got to that point too, on that side of things. So there's a lot of different directions this could go in. It also is going to very much be kind of a big mover for overall Disney Plus, and direction other shows go in and other showrunners go in the future, because it might set some precedents that are either old new precedents, or just new precedents for how to do certain things with the storytelling. So that's fascinating.
Yeah, I sort of hope the protagonist of this show, or perhaps the antagonist or anti-hero, whatever you want to call them, sort of follows like a Walter White sort of trajectory, where they start off very sympathetic, and you think, okay, they're siding with the Sith, but they have a good reason for it. And then as the show goes on, you peel away the layers, and you peel away the layers, and you peel away the layers, and by the time you reach the final season, they are the danger. They are the bad guy. There's no sort of question about it. And you can see their descent over the course of 4 or 5 seasons, or however long the show goes on for. I think that could be a really sort of fun and intriguing way to bring you in, because you're brought in, with Breaking Bad, right? You're brought in because you feel for Walter White. You feel for him as somebody you want to root for. He's been dealt a bad hand in life. He's just trying to make the best of it. And then by the end of it, you're invested in watching his downfall, and he has to lose. He has to lose. But there's still a part of you that kind of wants him to win. And I suspect we might see something like that with a new Sith character as we, go deeper into the Acolyte.
Yeah, I'm just so fascinated with the idea of, let's focus more on the dark side. Let's focus more on the Sith, especially in this era, because there is something really, really interesting about the Sith here, because I think, especially now, we're talking about the High Republic here, and the Sith have not been talked about. We can assume that they've been out there all this time. We know they have to be out there in some form or fashion. And the thing is, with the Sith, it's like, they're not always the most powerful. They're not always in control. The one thing that they have on anyone else is they're patient, that they're willing to wait. And it's interesting, the idea of like all these, we're assuming, generations of people, master apprentice, just waiting. Maybe some of them doing absolutely nothing, just in the background, just like, okay, trying to work towards something. What is that like? Like, what is that like? And what is it like for someone, maybe the Acolyte, maybe someone, we could get to a point where they're having issues, they're having second thoughts, they are the harbinger of the future of the Sith. Do they continue with this? Maybe we find out that Palpatine's, the whole reason the Empire and everything comes together, and Order 66 and all that, is, just kind of in balance over this acolyte. And I'm kind of wondering, is this acolyte, is it going to be the, are you going to find out like at the end of the series, this is Plagueis's master? Like, could it be something like that? I don't know, but I love the idea of like going into this and not dealing with anyone we really know of, but dealing with the main problem, the main thing that's going to screw up the galaxy, and everyone from Anakin, Luke, Rey, all of them have to be cleaning up that mess for 100 years. Like, that's the whole thing.
It might be an interesting trajectory for this show, or an interesting way they could frame this show, is a forbidden friendship or relationship or some kind of thing between some sort of young Jedi who discovers the Sith, discovers the truth about what's going on out there, and tries to draw our acolyte back to the light, tries to draw them out of the picture. And, sort of in the way that the prequels culminate with Anakin and Obi-Wan on Mustafar, maybe this could culminate with some sort of showdown between the two of them, and it would be a stark betrayal of this Jedi who perhaps was keeping the Sith a secret because they were trying to save whoever the acolyte is, and their failure results in nobody knowing about the Sith, and it allows them to continue into the final stages of their plan, because we're reaching the end point here. We're 100 years out. It's we're 1 or 2 generations removed from old Shivi taking power. So
Yeah,
it could be, the village. I liked what you said, Ben, of perhaps Plagueis's master is not Darth Tenebris as we thought, but it's somebody else. It's Amandla Stenberg or whoever else is going to be in this show. I think that could be really interesting. And again, you could start to lay some groundwork in for some weird dark magic, cloning, dark science, secrets only the Sith know kind of thing for Plagueis and what he learns to accomplish until Palpatine takes it away from him.
That's fascinating. I mean, obviously, Star Wars can be fast and loose with precedents, and especially with Kenobi coming up, there's probably going to be a lot going on in there that just wouldn't have lined up with how you'd expect on the first read of A New Hope. But again, from a certain point of view. But one of the precedents that is pretty worked into the prequels is that idea that the Sith are supposed to be extinct. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, the Jedi Council is very incredulous when it's brought up to them that there might be some Sith still around. They're like, really? They've been gone for 1,000 years. What are you talking about?
Well, they're in denial.
That's crazy.
They don't even believe it.
Yeah. So obviously,
next you'll tell me there's a Sith in controlling the Senate. Come on.
Yes.
I told you.
So that's a box that, this show is being put in, but also, like you said, Dominic, it could be a creative opportunity to tell a story in a different way too, because you can't have that big showdown between the Jedi and the Sith in the show, or otherwise it would very much nullify that, unless you can show them wiping the memories of every Jedi or something. There's really no way. I feel like there's no way around that. And so I do think that it's got to be a more clandestine like story going on, and that idea of it just being a singular Jedi who knows about what's going on and then they're betrayed. I think that is a really cool potential way that they could accomplish doing that and have it fit with what we expect coming into Phantom Menace.
And it could be similar to what happens with fives in the Clone Wars. Like they're this close to figuring it out. This close. They had one guy who knew it all, and he could have spilled the beans, and he couldn't do it.
Another sort of pre-existing thing I think it would be worth looking at would be the Darth Bane trilogy. That is all from the Sith's point of view, and it's all sort of clandestine actions that are being taken by Darth Bane and Darth Zana. And I'm not saying they should adapt those books or anything, but the way the author of those books, whose name is escaping me, went about sort of crafting his story, he had to tell stories where Jedi come close, but they miss. And the way the Legends verse worked, it was conceivable that Jedi would think, oh, maybe there's a Sith over there, and then go check under the covers and realize, no, he's not over there.
You had Quinlan Voss was definitely hunting Palpatine Sidious down, and he came close and didn't get there. And then I feel so horrible that I'm forgetting this wonderful Jedi's name, but the wonderful Weequay Jedi also came very close to finding
Sora
that out.
Bulk?
Yes, thank you so much. Sora Bulk. Let's go.
Bam. All
Trivia
right.
champion.
Yeah, trivia champion Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
Where's my belt?
We should have bought Ben a belt. Oh, I wish.
Oh, we got a week.
No, you should not have. It would be another thing for me to pack. Okay, I don't need that right now.
We'll give it to you at Anaheim, and then you can put it up in the Ducks trophy case or something. Put it right next to their Stanley.
Yeah.
They're not going to actually. They're not going to have that though because there's only one.
Yeah, they've won it, so they'll have something.
They'll have some commemoration of winning the championship.
And hang it next to their banners.
There we go.
Yeah. Something.
Tie their banners together with the belt.
All right. So that's the Acolyte. So we've covered Andor. We've covered the Acolyte. I'm gonna pick next where we go.
All right.
I'm feeling Grammar Rodeo. That's where I want to go next because this has been very intriguing. This has been very intriguing to me ever since the rumors started hitting the scene. They do officially confirm it, and they do reveal a couple of details. Again, reading from the Vanity Fair article, another series on the horizon doesn't even have a title, just a code name. Grammar Rodeo, a reference to an episode of The Simpsons in which Bart and his schoolmates steal a car and run away for a week using a phony educational event as an alibi. The show takes place during the post-Return of the Jedi reconstruction that follows the fall of the Empire, the same as The Mandalorian, but its plot remains a secret. It's created and executive produced by director John Watts and writer Chris Ford, who made Spider-Man Homecoming for Marvel. A casting notice has called for 4 children around 11 to 12 years old. Inside Lucasfilm, the show is being described as a galactic version of Amblin coming-of-age adventure films of the 1980s. So it's fascinating what of the rumors was correct and which ones were wrong. The code name? Correct.
Yep.
John Watts? Correct.
Yep.
Casting 4 kids in a coming-of-age story? Correct.
Yep.
The era in which it takes place? Because the rumors said it was High Republic, but this confirms it is post Return of the Jedi, and it kind of sounds like it's might tie in with the Mandoverse, which is kind of interesting. Given that the Mandoverse, let's be honest, it's geared at the older demographic of Star Wars fans, and it sounds like this one is going to be geared at a slightly younger one. In that like Goonies, E.T., Stand By Me kind of vibe.
Well, is that though? Like, would you say, because it was, they were originally, the rumors were describing this as Stranger Things-esque, and Stranger Things is not necessarily aimed at kids.
No, it's true, and I guess you could say, maybe Stand By Me. I can't remember. Maybe that was rated R. I can't remember.
I think it was.
Yeah. So
did one of the kids die?
Well, they die in the. Like they die in the end, like when they tell you what happens in their lives afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I don't think one of them dies on screen.
Oh, I thought I must be confused.
Yeah. But I don't know. I suspect it might. It wouldn't. Let's be honest. It wouldn't shock me if it goes either way. It wouldn't shock me if it does the more Stranger Things kind of thing, where it's like here are kids, but it's still an adult show. Also, wouldn't shock me if they said, you know what, we're doing something that's more of a family. I'm not even gonna say a kid show. I'm gonna say a family show. Something that is, fun for all ages. That the parents watching can get something out of it, and the kids watching will get something out of it too.
So somebody, not one of the kids, somebody else is murdered, and then the kids go to
Just to
figure
see
out what's going on.
Right.
And yes, it is an R movie.
Yeah.
In 1986, which I can't remember if that skewed one way or the other. Let's see.
Not sure.
PG then was like PG-13 now. So that means R then was probably more. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was definitely an adult film.
Yeah, you're right.
Film
It's
for
a Stephen King Stephen King adaptation, right? Adaptation, right? So So you would think a Stephen King movie would be more for kids, more for adults. I mean, so yeah, it's gonna be fascinating to find out what we learn about this next week, if anything. It explains why John Watts dropped out of the Fantastic Four movie that he was allegedly making for Marvel.
Right.
But I'm excited. I'm excited about this. I'm excited to see, who these kids are, because your instinct is that they should be Jedi.
Yeah.
But there aren't many Jedi around in this time period. So who are these kids? Are we just going to meet 4 random children living on some backwater planet who decide to steal a spaceship and wind up getting caught up in the adventure? I don't know. I'm really fascinated by what like they say, an Amblin coming of age story would look like in the Star Wars universe.
I think it's a brilliant idea, and I'm really glad that those rumors about Stranger Things are true, because that's one of the things I was most excited about from hearing about the series of those rumors that we had. Like in general, like this genre, if there's something in this genre, I pretty much will watch it. Like it's an automatic watch if it's in that space. And so very typically the stories are very well done in this genre. So this is exciting, but it also means it's got a really high bar as well. Because they're basically, I mean, if you're coming and saying like, yeah, okay, we're gonna make a show and it's gonna be like E.T., it's gonna be like the Goonies, then you're basically saying you want to make the next Star Wars.
Right.
So this has got the double pressure of not just trying to be Star Wars, but also trying to be all the best stuff outside of Star Wars too, from the 80s. So it's a big ask, but I don't doubt them. I think they have a fair chance at pulling this off. John Watts is obviously great, and it's exciting. And I think having a show without Jedi characters might accomplish what we thought Star Wars Rebels was going to be. Because if y'all remember back in what it would have been like 2013, 2014, everybody was talking about, hey, we're going to have a show without a lightsaber, and it's going to be the new thing. It's going to be really cool. And then what do you get? Oh, right. It's about a Jedi teaching it.
2 lightsabers.
First episode. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, you mentioned John Watts. Like, those Spider-Man movies that he did, like, that's incredible what he was able to pull off with those movies. Because what I found most sort of surprising after the first 2 was how much I was just enjoying the adventures of Peter Parker. Like, forget Spider-Man. That was great. That was wonderful. But what John Watts and in the first movie, what's the other guy's name? Chris Ford. What the two of them did in creating the characters around Peter, whether it's Ned and MJ and Flash and the other ones that are all around him, like they created this wonderful little world of Peter Parker's friend life and his school life that was just as engaging as the Spider-Man stuff. And the Spider-Man stuff was really, really engaging. And going into No Way Home, my big concern was that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield would overshadow what made those previous 2 movies so great, which was the adventures of Peter and his friends, at least for me.
Yeah.
And to be perfectly honest, they kind of did, but it was so good I didn't care. But they still managed to give Ned and MJ a big important part. Just the other ones all kind of fell off. That were
and a big driving part of the plot was revolved around them and their fates, basically.
Yeah.
What I will say is that Spider-Man is not my favorite superhero. Like, he's in the kind of middle of the pack for me. There are some DC ones I put before him and some Marvel ones that I enjoy their stories more. And while I definitely enjoyed the first two home movies of the home trilogy, and I would put them kind of as for me at least, they were kind of mid-tier Marvel films, enjoyable but not my favorite. I know for a lot of people like you, they were top tier, but I will say that No Way Home is one of my favorite Marvel films. No Way Home actually brought Spider-Man to a new level to me. That what was done in that film was absolutely brilliant. Both what was done personally with Peter's character and his relationship with his friends, but then also what was done bringing in the other Spider-Mans in the multiverse was absolutely brilliant. So, I would go from being, this if we had known it was John Watts for sure, before No Way Home, I'd be like, okay, this is a good shot of being a decent thing. Now, again, it's like bar gets up, Rian Johnson, Last Jedi, like, okay, this is he's just coming off of one of the best Marvel films ever made. Dang. Like, here we go.
It is there has to be something to be said about, how John Watts writes and directs these people to make them feel, because like if you see Tom Holland or Zendaya like offset just like normal people, are like, oh yeah, they're normal adults. They're normal adults. But in those movies, they feel like kids. They feel like teenagers. They act like teenagers. They talk like teenagers. And in other movies that they are in that aren't the Spider-Man movies, I don't like how they're written. I think in Civil War, in the Avengers movies, Peter Parker feels like a different person. I'm just like, it doesn't work. Like, just really old movie. I'm like, kids don't. It's like what a adult thinks a kid sounds like. It's just weird. Yeah. And done ranting about Marcus and McFeely's writing there, but overall, I think it can be done badly. It can be done well. I think this guy really has found the nice happy medium of like doing it and doing it well. I'd really love to see him take that on in the Star Wars universe. And we've seen Jedi kids. The first thing I think of when we're talking about a Goonie style adventure in the Star Wars universe, I think of going back to the Young Jedi arc from Clone Wars, which I really, really loved. And we've kind of gotten that already, you could say. We've already gotten it. I want more of it, obviously. They were going to turn that into a series. That would have been great. But doing it with just normal kids in a unprecedented time in the galaxy, I think would be really, really interesting. And who knows? I'm curious. They're talking about either the Reconstruction period. Are we talking closer to Mando? Are we talking just like right after Return of the Jedi? I don't know. Obviously, they're going to be in that era. It seems logical that they would put it closer to Mando so they can cross them over at some point. But even so, just doing it around in this era and doing it with characters that, again, everyman type characters. It doesn't have to always be a Jedi. That's what I like about Diego Luna and Cassian Andor is he's not a Jedi. He's just a normal guy that's put in unprecedented circumstances. I think that's kind of at the core of Star Wars is normal people. We've kind of lost track of that because all the quote unquote normal people kind of became extraordinary. Luke Skywalker, normal guy, became extraordinary. Kind of bringing it back to basics of just normal people getting caught up in an extraordinary circumstance is important to kind of ground the story and make it feel the most relatable.
Yeah. So true.
Absolutely. All right. Chris, a couple minutes ago, you mentioned Rian Johnson.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the future of Star Wars films, shall we? For this, we're going to go outside of the article and going to go to one of the follow-up pieces that Bresnikan posted on Entertainment. Again, Entertainment Weekly. I just want to say he still works for Entertainment Weekly. Vanity Fair, whatever website he writes for.
Entertainment Monthly or whatever it's called now.
I think now it's just called Entertainment Website.
Oh my gosh.
But there's a follow-up article that was just basically a Q&A with Kathleen Kennedy that Bresnikan did. So here's what Bresnikan asks Kennedy. He says, "Can we touch upon storytelling classic, quote unquote, the movies? I know Taika Waititi's Untitled film written by Christy Wilson Cairns and Patty Jenkins is doing Rogue Squadron. Do you have a roadmap for the features, or are you still developing that?" Kennedy replies, "We have a roadmap. I would say that Taika's story fits more specifically into that. Rogue Squadron, we kind of pushed off to the side for the moment. Patty is developing the script further. Then we will talk about how it connects to the central spine that we're working on. There's a couple of filmmakers that we've been in conversation with over quite a long period of time that I'm hoping will come in and make the overall commitment that John and Dave have made. That's ideally what I would love to see happen in the feature space." Then Bresnikan asks, "Are you talking about a commitment to make, say, 3 movies, or are you talking about an even bigger commitment of shepherding phases of films in the way that Kevin Feige did with Marvel?" Kennedy replies, "I wouldn't go so far. Kevin is an anomaly, an amazing one, but the goal is definitely having somebody make more of a commitment. I hesitate to use the word trilogies anymore because Star Wars is much more about persistent storytelling." Bresnikan then asks, "One of the enduring questions that fans have is about Rian Johnson and his future with Star Wars. Is there anything you can tell me about that? I know it's been said that his trilogy is still on, but it's been so many years since it was announced. Is that still the case? Can we resolve what's going on with his idea?" Kennedy replies, "Ryan has been unbelievably busy with Knives Out and the deal that he made with Netflix for multiple movies. I've had meetings with Ryan. He's somebody that's come in as part of our little brain trust discussions along the way. He remains very committed to what it is that we're trying to do. He just literally hasn't had the time to devote. That's what I'm saying. Anyone who comes into the Star Wars universe needs to know that it's a 3, 4, 5-year commitment. That's what it takes. You can't step in for a year and shoot something and then walk away. It just doesn't work that way. So it requires that kind of nurturing." Bresnikan says, "I mentioned Kevin Feige before, and I know it's been reported that he's producing something for you. Can you tell me about it?" Kennedy replies, "That's the rumor mill. Kevin, I think, as everybody knows, is a huge Star Wars fan. He's clearly been inspired by Star Wars in the way that he's handled Marvel, and I know he's got a lot on his plate right now. I would love to see at some point what movie he might come up with, but right now, no, there isn't anything specifically on the horizon." Then there's a little update from Vanity Fair that says, "This interview with Kennedy was in March, and last week screenwriter Michael Waldron told Variety that he was working on a script for the rumored Feige project, saying, we're finally into it in earnest."
Whoops.
Final question from Bresnikan. He says, "Was there anything else on the film about the film side of things that you'd like to talk about?" Kennedy says, "We'll probably get a little more specific in a couple of months." Now, again, this was recorded in March to April. That's 1 month. April to May. That's 2 months.
Yeah.
2 is a couple. Celebration is next week. It's a couple of months. Maybe we'll hear something at the showcase panel. But there's a lot in there. There's a lot in there that we need to touch on. So we'll go through the sort of the specific things first, which is we've kind of come full circle with what the next Star Wars movie is from where we were in May for May 4th, 2020, or which is that Taika Waititi's movie is next. That's what we all assumed. Then they announced Rogue Squadron, and now we've circled back to that. So it does seem that the rumors about Rogue Squadron being on hold are true. So we do not have Rogue Squadron will not be the next Star Wars movie. That will likely be Taika Waititi's movie. Let's start with that. How do we feel about that? No Rogue Squadron, at least not in the immediate future.
Well, this isn't any different than I was expecting. I mean, it did seem to me that those 2 films were going to be the next 2 based on the presentation made a few years ago. Has it really been that long?
I know, right? A year and a half. Let's
year and
not.
a half. There we go. Year and a half ago. In the Great Disney Investor Showcase presentation extravaganza, Lollapalooza, and so those are the impression. Those were the 2 that were going to put out first, and then of course hearing that Rogue Squadron was delayed, yeah, it kind of naturally makes you think, okay, well that means Taika Waititi's film is going to be the next one. So that doesn't shock me. It doesn't surprise me. I'm not disappointed by it. It just seems like just confirmation that, you know, what seemed to be obvious is indeed the truth with that one. So it just sets the field right now for like, okay, so when are we going to get this announcement about what the heck Taika Waititi is going to do outside of destroying and ruining Star Wars? Like that's all we really know is that he wants to do something out of left field. That's really all we have to go on with this. I don't think we know really much else about what the heck that film's going to be.
No, we really don't. I will say, just on the Rogue Squadron front, like for me, I am disappointed that it's being delayed.
Yeah.
You know, I when they announced it, I thought that's a really cool idea. That's a really cool filmmaker that they've partnered with. I would like to see what they can do. And as we've said in the past, more than anything, I want to have a Star Wars movie back in theaters. It has only been 2.5 years since the Rise of Skywalker, but it feels like a lot longer because of everything that's gone on. And we got used to having a Star Wars movie once a year. That was pretty great. For 2015 through 2019, that was a pretty magical time in that respect. So I'm disappointed on that front. That said, I'm very intrigued by what Taika might have worked up. Ben, where are you coming down on all this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit what we'd expected, and a bit like I'm kind of glad to hear they're not like trying to force things and trying to adhere to some schedule and in being more open and understanding that and kind of asking a lot from these filmmakers and saying, look, you need to come in and you need to commit a lot of time to this and really put your nose to the grindstone and do this thing for several years to make it work. And if you can't do that, we maybe not do that. Maybe that was the problem. We've been wondering what happened with Josh Trank and Gareth Edwards and all these people that got, pushed off to the side or fired or quit or whatever else. There was so many that happened. What was the problem? Well, maybe this was part of it. Maybe it was this commitment problem and, thinking that they could just, 1 or 2 years crank these movies out every single year. Clearly that worked for a bit, but also didn't, had a lot of issues. So going back to the drawing board and kind of planning things out and also, saying, hey, look, we'll announce stuff. We still want to do this. And yeah, Ryan's still there and he's still in the office, maybe doing stuff and helping out, but he can't commit because he's doing other stuff. And when he can he come back? And all the people that hate Ryan are like, likely story. Yeah, you're just saying that you can't say you could fired him. But, it is, I like what I'm hearing. There's some other things that Kathy said in this interview that I was like, I'm not sure how I feel about that. But overall, this sounds good. And, I'm willing to wait for Rogue Squadron and I'm interested in what Taika's doing.
Yeah, we'll dig in on Ryan in just a second. I think there's something else she says before we get to the Ryan stuff that's very interesting. She describes Star Wars. She says, I hesitate to use the word trilogies anymore because Star Wars is more about persistent storytelling.
Yeah,
which to me sounds like they want to do the Marvel-esque, every movie builds on the previous one and it's all driving towards some sort of endpoint. And not just every movie, but every show builds on the previous one and is driving towards some sort of endpoint that we're looking for. And so I think, what we saw in 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 was there was a trilogy of movies that were all driving towards one endpoint, but interspersed between them were these kind of random side adventures that were a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong. And we're still seeing the fruits of those random side adventures with Andor and everything that's going on there. But it wasn't all, everybody wasn't all dancing to the same tune, right? They were kind of doing their own thing. And I think from here on out, we're going to see, if not one cohesive story all pointing in the same direction, we're going to see a couple of them. And so, you'll have the Mandoverse, quote unquote, with everything that we got going on with the Mandalorian and Ahsoka and Book of Boba and potentially Grammar Rodeo, potentially Rangers of the New Republic, all that stuff. That's everybody's dancing to that one tune that's moving a larger story in that direction. And we'll have, every story will kind of have its own thing that's going on. Everybody has their own dance move that they're pulling off, whether it's some forcey stuff with Ahsoka or some underworldy stuff with Boba Fett. But it's all ultimately driving towards Thrawn and other things, other big things going on in the galaxy. Then we'll have something similar going on with the TV universe, or with the cinematic sort of universe that will likely begin with whatever Taika is doing, and that will lead into more movies and then hopefully more shows. I kind of feel like Andor and Obi-Wan are they're kind of the last vestiges of the old way, and that we might not see shows like that again for a while, projects like that again for a while. I feel like they might be kind of, like I said, the last vestiges of the old way of thinking. And then I fully expect the Acolyte to spin off into some other stuff. And maybe the films will tie in with the Acolyte. Maybe we'll be doing some end of the High Republic, beginning of the prequel era stuff on TV or on the big screen as well as on TV. But I think likely what we'll see with Star Wars is no longer sporadic stories here and there of we'll do an Obi-Wan story, then we'll do a Cassian story, and then we'll do a Bad Batch story. It'll be the Mandoverse, the Acolyte verse, and whatever begins with Taika's movie, that verse as well. And there'll be sort of 3 storylines all going at once. And if a show doesn't tie in with the Mandalorian, it'll probably tie in with the Acolyte or with what Taika's doing. And that's what she means. That's my assumption. That's my read on what persistent storytelling means.
Mm-hmm.
There perhaps is an endpoint, but it's not as simple as episodes 1, 2, and 3, or 4, 5, and 6, or 7, 8, and 9, or 10, 11, 12 for that matter.
Right. No, it's very much in that Marvel model concept of having all the stories weave into each other. And really the only difference is that, Marvel is a lot tighter with just one kind of timeline because it's kind of based on an alternate version of our actual timeline.
Yeah.
And so until they have more time travel-y shows where it's like they're going back in time a lot and creating ripple effects, that there's probably not going to be much. But there is though that kind of multiple step where you have some of the series having time jumps in it. Like a good example would be Captain America, for example. Like there are 2 technical timelines to that. So there's a bit, but Star Wars definitely is going to have more of those multiple tiers, but certainly less than perhaps it has now, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm. Next, we'll go. We'll touch on what's going on with Ryan now. I honestly took some comfort in these comments from Kathleen Kennedy, because there's a couple of points. One is she describes him as being part of the brain trust.
Yes,
that's cool.
He's somebody that's come in as part of our little brain trust discussions along the way. That's very important. She's still having meetings with him. And it's true. I mean, Netflix paid a hell of a lot of money, an amount of money that was confounding to the rest of the industry for Knives Out 2 and 3. So yeah, they're going to get priority. And as the more time goes on between the announcement of Ryan's trilogy and now, the more time between since it's been announced, the more this like persistent nagging thought has occurred to me, which is just they're trying to wait out the Phantom Menace. They're trying to wait out those fans. They're trying to reach that point that we're seeing with the prequel trilogy and with George Lucas, where when they say Ryan Trilogy Episode 1 is a go, there will be parties in the street. People will be so excited. Because if you had announced in 2015 that Star Wars Episode 7 would be directed by George Lucas, a lot of people would have been excited. Just like if you said the next movie is the first Ryan Johnson trilogy movie, a lot of people would be excited. But there would have been a lot of people who would have been very vocally against it. They would not have been happy. They would not have liked it. And as would likely be the case if you announced the first Ryan movie as the next movie. But if you said now that George Lucas was coming back to make a Star Wars movie, it'd be jubilation.
Yeah.
It'd be wondrous. There'd be fireworks in every city. It'd be terrific. And I think a time will come, much in the same way that the time has come where the prequels have been reevaluated, and we can have an Obi-Wan Kenobi series starring Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen, which would have been unthinkable in 2013 or 2011, whatever. The time will come when a Rian Johnson announcement will be met with much more fanfare, much more
thunderous applause,
excitement than it would be if it were announced now. So I think Kathy is saying to Ryan, go make your Knives Out trilogy. Go create that mystery show for television. Do what you got to do. Let's keep talking about it, and we'll come back in 2029 and we'll do another one of these.
So here's the thing. Rian Johnson did not ruin Star Wars. He's not ruined Johnson. And I'm going to explain this. So Kathleen Kennedy she's president of a company. She's a producer. That means that she has a job. What is her job? To make money. That's her job. Now, she's making it in a really cool way where she can make really cool stuff that involve a lot of creative people and inspire a lot of people. And it's awesome and rewarding. But what is her job? Her job's to make money. So that's what she's going to look at ultimately when she's looking at someone's contribution to the company that is Lucasfilm and to Disney. So I just looked up the current numbers right now, the updated figures. Here we go. So The Last Jedi, box office, $1.3 billion. The Last Jedi budget estimates up as high as $300 million. So in other words, taking out any money that they may have spent for marketing the film, which usually isn't included in the production budget for the film when they add those figures. The Last Jedi, Rian Johnson personally handed Kathleen Kennedy and her company $1 billion with a B. Are you kidding me? And he's brain trust. He's brain trust. Like that's the little tiny thing that he gets for that. No, like there is not a second that anyone at Lucasfilm thought that Rian Johnson was bad for Star Wars. There was not a second.
Yeah.
Because people will come up with things to hate on all the time. Like you said, Dominic, people hated on George Lucas for a while. They hated on Dave Filoni for a while. They hated on,
Hayden Christensen.
Hayden Christensen. There's just been so many, and then so many actors have been hating on for like absolutely no reason, just stupid stuff, like Kelly Marie Tran getting hate for like just no justifiable reason.
Existing.
And it's like, the internet, there's a lot of people who just, their hobby is to say negative things. That's their hobby. That's what, that's how they cope with life, basically. And it's a very maladaptive coping mechanism, and it's unfortunate how it affects people. But thankfully, the people who run Disney, who run Lucasfilm, understand it's a business operation, and ultimately if something makes money, it's a good thing for them. And this movie made them $1 billion in profit. Take the money that they made from DVD sales, digital sales, and merchandise, put that up against the money maybe they put up for marketing. There you go. It's $1 billion in profit for the company. Just to put that in perspective, Disney Plus makes about $5 billion a year. all of Disney Plus makes $5 billion a year. So The Last Jedi is equivalent to like 20% of their entire streaming revenue. That's a big chunk of the pie right there from one guy, from one director who wrote and directed this film and had more control over it than any other person involved in a Star Wars film. Even George Lucas didn't have as much control over anything, maybe outside of the prequels, and even then, maybe not, as Rian Johnson did.
I will say I think George had more control over the prequels than,
probably.
any single Star Wars filmmaker since then.
That's the one exception I'll make is George Lucas with the prequels. But other than that, Rian Johnson, he did what George did. And then there's anytime George has been asked about it, Rian Johnson's probably the director he respects the most who's taken up the mantle, I think. And so he understands too. And obviously him and Kathy are cut from the same cloth there. So, and that's why she was chosen by him to lead the company even before the buyout. So there's a lot of facts there. These are not opinions. They're facts. And so it makes perfect sense that he's in the brain trust. It makes perfect sense that they're just waiting on it. And it makes sense to me. They might want to wait for some of that to come down. But honestly, I think if they had the opportunity to have him commit, 3 to 5 years now, they would do it. And that's why they made those announcements years ago that, he was in talks for multiple films, and because they were ready to pull the trigger on it because he's that guy. And then the final thing I'll say is I'm just excited to hear the word Rian Johnson as the words brain trust. Like, I don't know if this has been brought up before. I know there's like a story group and there's like that stuff going on too. This is a cool concept because this is one of the things that came out of Pixar that then I feel like revitalized Disney, because Disney kind of went through a slow period. And especially in their animation side of things and even some of their live action films where, I remember a time when, Disney was really not the premier studio for a bit. There was a lot of people competing with them. Kind of at the end of the 90s, early 2000s, as traditional animation was slowing down and computer generated animation was coming in, like the back to the barnyard days of Disney. And it very much was it very much was Pixar being absorbed by Disney and all the like connections that came back and forth between those two places, and that idea of the brain trust that helped Disney kind of get back on its feet, aside from just acquiring all these other great studios like Pixar and like Lucasfilm and like Marvel, but also just with their own original stuff, incorporating that idea that came out of Pixar, which of course in itself came out of Star Wars, because that team that founded Pixar originally worked for George Lucas doing the tech side of things for computer graphics for Lucasfilm, for ILM, way back in the day. So it's come full circle. It's absolutely amazing to see, George Lucas innovating and then getting those Silicon Valley people and Pixar, the beginnings of Pixar involved, then that spinning off, Steve Jobs and Apple kind of overseeing that for a while and bankrolling it for a while and adding a lot of creative input and allowing them to struggle for years, not making a profit. Then finally Toy Story making everything they had worked for happen. I mean, Pixar, like 10 years of making films before they took off, and it was Toy Story that did it. And then to see that then come back into Disney when Steve Jobs sold it to Disney, and then to see that those ideas then come back into Lucasfilm, the idea of the brain trust now, like 40 years after this whole process started, that's just so cool. It's really, really awesome. I think it's so cool.
For sure. One of the pictures from Vanity Fair was of the Star Wars, the behind the scenes people. I think some of these people make up the brain trust that Chris is talking about.
Imagine.
Of course, there's Dave Filoni, there's Deborah Chow, there's Jon Favreau, there's Kathleen Kennedy, and over on the far right of the picture, there's a stand with a computer on it. I really think on that computer should be a Zoom call to Rian Johnson. Because I feel like he's the one that's missing from this picture. Perhaps maybe Taika too. Maybe get some more of them in there. John Watts perhaps as well. I will say I love this picture Dave Filoni, just because he's got that face that we've seen him make 1,000 times at conventions. When somebody asks him a question he can't answer, he's just like, I can't answer that. Why are you asking me that? I think Annie Leibovitz, right before she took this picture, went, "Hey, Dave, what happens to Ahsoka?" And he went, and that's the pose he got. But yeah, I think the brain trust, I think that's an idea that they've wanted to have at Lucasfilm for a long time. And you go back to the early days of the Disney sale and the Disney takeover, and you had people like Simon Kinberg and Larry Kasdan and Michael Arndt being around. And I think they were a first attempt at this brain trust. And I think it's likely evolved as people have gotten involved and people have left. Like, Kinberg and Kasdan don't really do much with Star Wars anymore, but Dave Filoni has certainly stepped up. Jon Favreau is a big part of that. And obviously Ryan is somebody that they love working with and someone that they want to keep working with, remains a part of that. So that's what's going on with Ryan. The Kevin Feige movie, well, Kathleen Kennedy tried to do a little tap dancing there. And, well, Michael Waldron just kind of stole her thunder a couple of weeks later, which as Michael Waldron does, he's known for that. Yes. Before we move on, Joel with a super chat here. Hot take: Star Wars hasn't worked as trilogies since the original. Both the prequels and sequels would have been stronger if they weren't 3.
I would like to hear a more elaborate, explanation of that take, Joel, perhaps in an email, because that's interesting.
I will agree to an extent. I think there was a definite, like, with 1, 2, 3, it was like Phantom Menace. George just he was just like going bananas, just doing whatever he wanted. And then Attack of the Clones was kind of more of that. And Revenge of the Sith was kind of like, oh crap, I have to finish this thing and put all the plot. So that's why there's so much in Revenge of the Sith that happens. I think if he had if it hadn't been 1, 2, 3, and 4 was already planned, was already made, we could have had more to that story. And obviously we got more to it in the Clone Wars, which basically was your episode 2.5. And the sequels, I mean, who knows? Who knows how that could have turned out if we could have had a 2 or a 4 or a 5. I don't know.
I would like to know where George Lucas's idea came from to have trilogies. Like, what does it stem from? What mythological, literature background?
So Campbell's work can be broken down into 3 main phases, right? The hero's journey is, I think, 15 steps, but it is more or less broken down into 3 main steps, or 3 main segments of the journey, which is departure, initiation, and return. And the OT follows that to a T, because Luke leaves home in the first movie. He goes through his Jedi trials in the second movie. And in the third movie, he does physically come home, but it's what he learns in the previous movies allows him to enable Anakin to come home as well. So he shares what he learns, and that has positive consequences for his community, which is the hero's journey in a nutshell. But it's worth noting the trilogy thing happened by accident, because George's original plan was to make 12 movies, and he was going to make them from 1977 all the way through about 2012. That was the original idea.
Yeah.
And then his life kind of fell apart between Empire and Jedi, and he decided, you know what? Screw it. We're ending with this one. And that's what you wound up with Return of the Jedi.
And the whole twist with, like, there is another Skywalker. It wasn't intended to be Leia. No. It was another Skywalker somewhere out in the galaxy that we'll get to in a movie or two. But then George is like, oh, just make them brother and sister and call it quits.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Boba Fett goes out like a punk in Return of the Jedi. He was supposed to be the main villain of Episode 7, had it continued. There's all these things that could have, might have, would have, should have, happened. But George decided at that time to cut it off with Episode 6, his third movie. I think, I like the idea of what Kathleen Kennedy is saying, and saying persistent storytelling. I like the idea of not locking ourselves into, we have to do 3 movies, we can't do 4 or 5 if that works better. But the trilogy, I do think, still works if you follow that departure, initiation, return model. And, you know, you can say, well, that's been done already. Well, the whole point of the hero's journey is Campbell looked at all of the myths from around the world that seemed very, very different, and he pulled out the concepts within them that were universal. So you can have myths from cultures that had no contact with each other, that had never heard of each other, that on the surface seem like completely different stories, but at their core follow the departure, initiation, return model. And so you can do that just as easily with Star Wars as well. And if you want to do a trilogy following that layout, really works. So I don't think we should limit ourselves to trilogies, but I also don't think we should write off trilogies either.
Yeah.
All right. So we still got a lot more to get to with this article. Where do we want to go next, Ben? We're going to ask you again. You got a choice of The Mandalorian, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ahsoka, or Solo: A Star Wars Story.
Let's go Ahsoka. All
I know which one we're avoiding and don't want to talk about.
So there's 2 parts to the Ahsoka story that we've got here. The first part is called, or I've titled it as "The Time Rosario Dawson Confirmed, quote unquote, an Ahsoka rumor." This comes from the Bresnikan article in Vanity Fair, not Entertainment Weekly. In October 2021, after Dawson had shot guest spots, she read a trade report about Christensen possibly joining her standalone show. Anakin Skywalker had been the character's mentor, and Vader's memory would understandably still haunt her. Dawson took a screenshot of the headline and opened Instagram using the characters' nicknames for each other from the Clone Wars as a caption. "I just posted, Sky Guy, they know, see you soon, snips." Only later did she realize the report was just an unconfirmed rumor. Fans took her post as hard confirmation, and the powers that be at Lucasfilm were distressed. "I looked in my email and Star Wars was like, you might want to take that down," Dawson remembers. "I'm like, man, I can't be trusted." Ahsoka will appear on Disney Plus in 2023, though Lucasfilm, eager to reclaim secrecy, still won't confirm if Dawson inadvertently leaked the truth about Anakin or if it was a false report. So that's part 1. Part 2, also from this article, I've titled, "Ewan McGregor confirms an Ahsoka rumor." Because this comes from earlier in the story where they're talking about Obi-Wan. It goes like this. "McGregor, who wrestled with joining the Star Wars galaxy in the 90s and wrestled again with whether to return, says the gig has saturated his life. My partner Mary is doing that Star Wars series with Rosario, and she's about to start," he says. Lucasfilm hadn't previously confirmed rumors that Mary Elizabeth Winstead will be in Ahsoka, but now they don't have to. "Our little boy has been born into this massive Star Wars family," says McGregor, whose son with Winstead was born last summer. "He will either embrace it or go really the other way. I don't know. Maybe he'll be a Trekkie." So within the story where they sort of play down one rumor about Ahsoka that a cast member confirms, another cast member seems to confirm another rumor that's out there. Hayden's in Ahsoka. I don't know why they're dodging it. They must want to do some big reveal next week or something. I don't know. Or maybe they're going to keep it secret until the show comes out. But you can't do an Ahsoka show without Anakin in some form or another. Right? Am I insane?
Yeah, that is a foregone conclusion.
Yeah.
That's what
I don't know why they're...
That announcement / report that came out, it was just like, okay, this is great news and kind of surprising, but also not at all surprising and should be expected that she would show up and that he would show up in this show. So that's thing. Just I guess the only other way they could do it is I don't know, get Matt Lantern there somehow, but we're dealing with live action stuff here, and their distinction is that, and Hayden's the natural choice.
Yeah, no, he's back. He'll do more.
He's in these photos. He's right there. Just do more with him. Jeez.
Yeah, I think he's on board.
I will say to speak to Yanni's comment that you just brought up about Aldous Huxley and the perennial philosophy, the monomyth. As he said, Aldous Huxley wrote about the same kind of thing a few years before Campbell with the perennial philosophy. Campbell called it the monomyth. I just wanted to say quickly, if one non-living person could come back to life and write a Star Wars film, I might choose Aldous Huxley. That would be fascinating.
It would be something. I would love to hear his rhymings in.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the kind of original science fiction, writers who kind of really, as the genre started becoming popular, he was very important, and obviously came from it from a very socio-political point of view as well as a technological point of view. So I think his Star Wars would be very fascinating.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me if George was a fan, because you can definitely pick up on Huxley vibes in THX 1138.
That's true. And then from the mysticism side of things, Aldous Huxley spent, the kind of latter half of his career diving into mysticism and those spiritual experiences. And that's a little lesser known than his science fiction, his technological science fiction. So a lot of the exploration that George did with kind of like the Buddhist Eastern themes of the Force it would be very interesting to see Aldous's take on that, knowing how much research he put into like Vedanta and Hinduism and how it relates to the philosophy of the modern era.
Mm-hmm. True. So all this stuff about Aldous Huxley get me thinking about Brave New World. And, there was an adaptation of Brave New World that came out a couple of years ago.
That's right.
And it starred one Alden Ehrenreich.
That's right.
Which is where we're going to go next.
Oh,
we
That's
found
a segue.
We found the segue.
Nice
It took a couple of steps, but we got there. Perhaps the spiciest quote from Kathleen Kennedy in all of this was about what went on and what went wrong with Solo, A Star Wars Story. So we're going to the Q&A follow-up article again, because I feel like it provides more context than the part of the quote that was pulled for the larger article. Because it sort of spins off of there's a question that Kathleen Kennedy gets asked, and she makes this comment in the answer. She says, we also can't do something with Luke Skywalker that isn't Mark Hamill. We're not suddenly going to try to do that. So they're talking, obviously we've seen in Book of Boba and in Mandalorian, Luke has returned, and it's been CGI Mark Hamill, with Mark being on set, giving them a performance on which to model the younger Luke on. This leads to Bresnikan asking a follow-up question about Solo, which, of course, tried to do Han Solo without Harrison Ford. Not successfully at the box office, but successfully in like sort of a creative way, I would say. But here's what Bresnikan asks. He says, "I don't want to put you in an awkward spot, but was this an understanding that you've come to that was developed from Solo? I don't want to trash Alden. I think he did a good job. But the idea that you can't really replace Luke Skywalker, was that something you learned from that movie, or how would you put it?" Kennedy replies, "Maybe. As you say it, Anthony, maybe. I think back, and Solo was one of the first ideas that came up when the company was sold. One of the first people I went to was screenwriter Larry Kasdan. Larry and I have known each other for forever. He was so excited to tell that story. We genuinely believed at the time that it was a good idea. So yeah, there should be moments along the way when you learn things. That may have certainly been a learning moment. Some people have talked about how, well, maybe Solo should have been a TV show. But even doing Solo as a TV show without Harrison Ford as Han Solo, it's the same thinking. Maybe I should have recognized this before. We would never make Indiana Jones without Harrison Ford. Having just finished the 5th movie, I can tell you there wasn't a day I wasn't on set that I wasn't like, yes, this is Indiana Jones. Maybe I'm closer to the DNA of Indy and always have. Maybe I'm closer to the DNA of Indy and always have been than I was when I came into Star Wars. Because now it does seem abundantly clear that you can't do that. You get excited by these things and you want to revisit things and you want to have that feeling again, and you're trying to resurrect it. I think that's what we do even with our new characters. With Star Wars, everybody talks about a feeling that they have about Star Wars. That's the intangible idea that you're looking for. Interesting. It's funny, right? In the lead up to Solo, when they announced that they were doing this Untitled Han Solo movie, we were saying this was a bad idea. We were saying this was a bad idea because it didn't feel like there was a missing chunk of Han's story that you should tell the way there did for other characters. You know, you go back and you do Obi-Wan Kenobi in the prequels because that's a big part of his story that's missing. There wasn't that for Han Solo. And also felt at the time, you know, Harrison Ford's performance as Han Solo is not something that's easily replicated. And what people love about Han Solo generally is what they also love about Harrison Ford. And so it seemed like a bad idea at the time. Then they cast Alden. Then the movie came out. And we went, this guy's pretty good. I believe him as Han Solo, even though he's not Harrison Ford. But the world went, we don't really want a Han Solo movie right now. And I don't know. I feel like the wrong lesson was learned here. And you know, nowhere does Kathleen Kennedy say that it's the only lesson that was learned. But I think it shouldn't have been the main one, because I don't think what was wrong with that movie was Alden Ehrenreich. I don't think people were. I think that the biggest thing that went wrong with that movie was obviously the fact that they had to reshoot most of it on a condensed timeline, and then that they didn't move it to December. I think you move it to December, it makes $800 million, and we're saying, well, it's a little bit less than usual, but it's not bad. You put it out in May, it makes $400 million, and we're sort of going, yeah, people weren't really into that. So I don't know. I kind of feel bad for Alden that the quote came out and that it's being taken in the way that it was, because as Bresnikan said, for whatever might have been wrong with that movie, it wasn't his performance. He wasn't the problem there. And I want them to bring back, if they're going to bring back Han Solo, I want it to be Alden Ehrenreich. I'm not really, you know, the stuff they're doing with the CGI, it's okay. It's okay, but I'd rather they recast. I'd rather have Alden Ehrenreich show up in The Mandalorian season 3 than DH Harrison Ford. So, I'd rather have Alden Ehrenreich show up in the Lando show than DH Harrison Ford.
There's two options here that she's saying would be better, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. She's saying she wished that they had either done that CGI de-aging with Harrison Ford and the stand-in actor probably, or they told a story with Harrison Ford's current actor's age and Han Solo being older, so something that would be more of a prequel to the sequels. And I agree with your take there, Dominic. I don't think that was the issue, and a lot of things that Kathleen Kennedy says I agree with, and I just spent a while defending her about Rian Johnson in The Last Jedi. But I do disagree with this, and the reason why is, as you said, I was one of those people that was skeptical of, will recasting Han Solo ruin this movie? And when I sat down and I watched that movie, I thought it was a great movie. And I thought that Alden did personify the character of Han Solo and a young Han Solo in that film. And the one thing that is kind of funny is that she's talking about Indiana Jones and how you can't have Indy without Harrison Ford when you do. I'm pretty sure the young Indiana Jones Chronicles have somebody else playing Indiana Jones in
There's
them,
like
and aren't they
5 different actors that have played in Indiana Jones so far.
Yeah. So, and I think those
River
did pretty
Phoenix,
well.
Sean
Yeah, and
Patrick Flannery or something like one of those
yeah,
guys.
that's true. That's right. In all the different flashbacks and things. So, yeah, like I feel like this is a bit of, you know, not wanting to throw the business side of the company under the bus and making that decision to put it out when they did. Because I'm just going to remind people of what was going on in the theater world that spring. So this came out on May 25th of 2018. And you wind back the clock several weeks to April 27th, 2018. That is when what I believe was at the time the highest grossing film ever, and might still be, Avengers Infinity War came out. Avengers Infinity War was a film that I watched more than once. And that's something I don't do for films outside of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Very rarely will I watch a film more than once. And usually it's because someone I know hasn't seen it and I enjoyed it. I'll watch it again in theaters. Rarely. I personally sat down and watched that by myself again because I wanted to see that, experience that in the theaters multiple times. There were so many people spending all of their money in the month of May watching Infinity War again and again and again. That was the big cultural zeitgeist thing from the same studios, Walt Disney Studios, the motion picture division. And in addition to that, not only were people doing that and blowing all of their money on Infinity War and the popcorn and the Coca-Cola, but the week before Solo: A Star Wars Story came out, you have Fox, I think this was before the acquisition by Disney or right around the time of the acquisition by Disney.
It's just before, I think.
Just before putting out the sequel to the wildly successful Deadpool R-rated superhero film. And that came out, again, literally the week before a Solo Star Wars Story dropped. And that, again, that made tons and tons and tons of money. And so the theaters, they were tapped. The audience was tapped by the time Solo came out, and the diehard fans watched it. But that general theater audience that's like looking for their movie to go to that week, they've just been to the theater for like 4 weeks straight. You know, they've seen Infinity War a few times, and they've watched Deadpool, and only so many of them came out to see Solo. And then the thing is, as it dragged into June, and you expect to get those people coming in late and watching the film or deciding to watch it a second and third time, you ended up with something else happening, which is on June 15th. You have, which would have been a little over 2 weeks after, I guess 3 weeks after, you have the sequel to one of the most beloved animated Pixar films, Incredibles, coming out from Walt Disney Studios. So you have Walt Disney trying to jam the most successful Marvel film, most anticipated Marvel film, the film that brought everything together, the film that had like 50 main characters in it. You had to try to jam Solo in that kind of 6 week period between that and The Incredibles 2, the sequel to what is many people's favorite childhood animated film of our generation. And you're competing against 20th Century Fox as well on top of that. And their sequel to a breaking the mold superhero film. It was beyond unintelligent to do that. And we knew it as soon as it was happening.
Yeah.
We knew it, what was happening. And I still stand by that. That is what happened. And like you said, Dominic, if that had been pushed back to any time in the year, not even December, any time in the year where it wasn't 6 weeks of multi-billion-dollar films coming out, it would have done so much better.
And that's ultimately why, when I first read the portion of this quote that was in the first article, it pissed me off. It really genuinely, like, I'm like, what did she say? And in Kathleen Kennedy's defense, Bresnikan kind of sets it up in, it's a little out of context. There's not a lot of details there. I feel a little bit better about it hearing the whole thing and kind of more in context. It still doesn't sound great. And it, like, of all the things, and it just goes back to a thing that I've been worried about and kind of experienced, is that, like, Lucasfilm is taking the wrong lessons from these mistakes and is not learning from their mistakes, is not learning properly, like, how to pivot and go in the right direction. I think they've learned some lessons, but not all of them. And with Solo, scarily, they may make even bigger mistakes because they didn't learn correctly. And it sucks. It sucks for, it makes me angry on Alden's behalf because I want him back. And it feels like they're throwing him under the bus when he did nothing wrong. He did everything right, in my opinion. He did a fantastic performance. And more, I just find myself really loving Solo. I think it might be my favorite new Star Wars film. Just gonna throw that out there. And that right there, I want that Solo 2. And this right here is just telling me, yeah, there's never gonna be a Solo 2, at least not for a long, long time. We're not gonna get Alden back. It's just so many things about this just kind of makes me angry.
Solo has imagine what we would think about Star Wars if it was just A New Hope. Imagine what we would think about the sequels if it was just The Force Awakens. Yeah, they're great movies, but it's really what happens afterwards that is reason why a lot of people hold those original films in such high esteem. There's definitely depth and deepening to those stories as the films progressed. I think that Solo, for me, it's the film that I hate the least. It's an interesting it has the interesting distinction of being a safe film that had all the Star Wars elements in it that I thought would make it a great Star Wars film, and I just enjoyed watching it. And there was nothing in it that really popped out of me as being like, oh, I don't like this. So it was a very just enjoyable, entertaining Star Wars film. But it also doesn't have any of those like top tier sections to it. It doesn't have like that Rogue One third act like killer. It's just not quite up to that level for me. So it's hard for me to say it's my favorite film, because even though it's the film I dislike the least, it's also there's some of my favorite moments on the screen have not been in that film. They've been in other films that have come out. So it's a difficult thing. But that being said, what is the mark of the foundation for a very good series of movies is starting off really strong. And I feel like if there was a strong second and or third act to that story, which it obviously was setting up, like, I mean, clearly that was not going to be one film. I think that it would be much more revered amongst fans too, as being seen as, just a part of a larger thing. I think there would have been moments that would have happened later in Solo 2 and or Solo 3 where, Darth Maul starts showing up and you get more character development with Kira in the current timeline of her character. Like, I think that would have made something really, really strong. So I think that it was a colossal missed opportunity by Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm to not produce those additional films, to not continue those character stories. I think that you're basically missing out on what could have been a franchise within a franchise that could have been great. And at the same time, you know, has anyone ever said, I wish Billy D was in that film? No, no. Childish Gambino knocked it out of the park. Yeah, Alden was great, spot on. Like, it didn't take me out of it.
Yeah.
But we all agree that young Lando was so well done. And the
great.
fact that we may or may not get more of that because of this is an absolute tragedy and travesty. Like, gosh, talk about throwing away a potential for a character. I just hope that somebody at some point, whether it's in the Lando show or another show in this era, just picks that back up again, because oh my goodness.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wonder if Kathleen Kennedy could do this interview again, would this quote happen? Would this little section happen? Because I think
she was definitely led.
She was led to it.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think, Chris, you hit on something very important earlier, that, you know, she's kind of protecting the business side with her answer.
Yeah.
And I think it's a real shame that to protect the business side and seemingly to protect Larry Kasdan, although, I don't know, Larry kind of gets thrown under the bus a little bit in there too when she says we thought it was a good idea at the time. She throws Alden under the bus. And, you know, she doesn't say anything negative about Alden, but just sort of says we wouldn't do it that way, which is sort of, it feels like it's you know, it probably wasn't intended as a slap in the face, but it kind of comes across as one. And I wonder if she could do this interview again, if she would not answer that question that way, or if she would answer it a different way. And I wonder if you know, maybe Lucasfilm PR should have caught this and said to Bresnikan, you can't use that quote, because you know they give the A-OK to every single one of these things that comes out. And if they said to Bresnikan, we don't want you to use that quote, he would say to them, okay, what else can you give me? And they would have given him something else. They would have found something else for him. He could have interviewed, I don't know, Rupert Friend or something, you know, like he could have found somebody else to talk to about that. So I don't think Kathleen Kennedy is probably regretting this quote, as are a lot of people at Lucasfilm right now, because it certainly came out not in a good way.
If it's a company line, it's a bad company line. It should have been thought through a little bit better.
Yeah. And like, you know, that if I'm an actor considering working with Lucasfilm and I see this, I might think twice before getting involved again. Like, am I going to be blamed for a movie flopping when I did everything right, when I fulfilled my side of it? I don't know.
It's just not good when you have a lot of people, and I know fandom discourse, especially on Facebook, Twitter, it is not a good barometer for this sort of thing. But when you have a lot of people, including myself, who have been staunch defenders of Kennedy, even the stuff that I'm not saying I agree with every single decision. Obviously, she's made some mistakes, but overall, I'm, you know, against the people that are like, she needs to be fired. I'm like, no, you know, I don't think she's vastly qualified for that. This is like one of the first things that I'm like, wow, that's really not good. That's like one of the most disappointing things I've ever heard her say, and that's not good.
Yeah, it was clearly a misstep. Clearly, I will also point out, and this has been pointed out other places, but I think it's worth mentioning. This comment about recasting is in relation to an article that is promoting, in large part, a show that is based around recasting. And I know the counterpoint to that is, you know, that's a prequel, it's not the same, yada, yada, yada. Let's be real. Based on this sort of comment that she made, if they were making the prequels now, they would be de-aging Sir Alec Guinness.
Yeah, that's true.
They would not be casting Ewan McGregor. And while that might be an interesting technical challenge to de-age Sir Alec, we wouldn't get a performance from Ewan McGregor or Hayden Christensen or any of the other, you know, fantastic actors
And
that
they've
got
done
cast.
this. They've taken dead people and brought them back to life with CGI, a la Tarkin.
So let's take this a step further. Let's imagine a situation where they're in one of these shows. They say we want a young Lor Santeca. We want a young Max von Sydow in one of these things. Are they finding a young actor to play that part who kind of looks a little bit like Max did back in the day, but is his own guy? Or are they getting an actor who kind of looks like Max, and they're going to put a bunch of dots on his face, and they're going to digitally recreate his performance? I don't know. I don't know which is better. I know what I'd rather see.
I think what she's not saying, and I think what a lot of people know is like it totally depends on the character. It depends on how big of a character it is, depending on how much effort they're going to put into it. They can recast someone, like obviously Ewan already had the built-in fan base, so there's no question there. Even though when you can apply the logic to it, it doesn't make any sense. But like, you know, with a Max von Sydow, lesser known character, who's going to things. I think this is my ultimate take on this is that this goes back to, I think, Lucasfilm's ultimate weakness is kind of being subservient and listening to the worst fans.
Mm-hmm.
In regard, and this is not just a Catholic anything. This goes back to George Lucas, of like George Lucas makes the Phantom Menace, and then the worst people go, "We hate Jar Jar," and all this kind of stuff, and he's like, "Oh, okay, I need to pull back and do all this kind of stuff." And for the record, you can dislike Jar Jar. You're not the worst. It's fine. But the people that like were really bad at it and harassed him and all that kind of stuff was terrible. But like taking like the most violent and most disgruntled people and saying these are what represent everyone. I think that's Lucasfilms. They're still struggling with this of like the most angry people. We have to listen to them, and the people that are angry that it's not Harrison Ford. That's the whole thing. I think it's really sad that we're still dealing with this, and they're very reactionary. We see the backlash to Last Jedi. Guess what? Rose disappears in the next movie. All these different things. People complain about Jar Jar. Jar Jar disappears in the next movie, and he doesn't even have any lines in the third movie. You know, there's a theme here, and it's sad.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Joel says Revenge of the Sith DH Tarkin 2. They didn't. They actually didn't. They found an actor and they put him in a mask.
Yeah.
They looked into doing
Wayne
a DH Tarkin.
Pygram.
That's right.
Yeah, they looked into doing it, and the technology wasn't there. And I fully believe that George would be all in on this de-aging stuff. And there's a lot that I admire about what George does. This is one thing where I'm sort of like, George, let's just cast some actors here, man.
So my take on this is it's not along these lines of perhaps how she's viewing it, of how well known the actor and the character is. That for me, it's just how big the role is in the film or TV show. Like that. That's kind of where I would draw the line. You know, I'm fine with the de-aging for Mark Hamill and the Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, because it's, you know, he's just there for an episode, or even, you know, less than an episode in some cases. And you know, I think that if the character is just there as a cameo, just as like an Easter egg surprise for people, then I'm all for, you know, it makes a lot of sense if you're just seeing them for that moment. They should look like the original version, because you don't have time to establish kind of who that is. It kind of sort of like if you had just kind of Han show up just for like one scene and it's Alden and then he's gone. You know, I don't know if there would be enough there for you to really identify Alden as Han. I think it would make more sense to DH Harrison Ford in that case. And I thought it was really cool seeing Luke and that episode of The Mandalorian. I thought it was really cool seeing Leia at the end of Rogue One. And Tarkin, you know, that was a tough one because they kind of had to, because it was the same era. It wasn't any younger. I was right before. But I think if you're going to have something where it's a whole movie or a whole show, then you got to either set it at a time period where the current actor, if they're still alive, can do it. And if they're not alive, you can't do it. Or you got to recast in a different time period where it makes sense for the character to look different, which usually would mean set before when the character first debuted. So that's my opinion. So if there is a dark time show about Han, then I would say do Alden Ehrenreich, don't DH Harrison Ford. But it would be really interesting if Han was in, say,
Grammar Rodeo.
Grammar Rodeo. Yeah, that would be a good one. I mean, obviously, here's the thing. As a purist, I would say after A New Hope, it should be Harrison Ford. That's what I would say. But I'm trying to think of something.
We've gone in circles about this with the Book of Boba Fett rumors. You think that, I think the other thing. I think Ben's somewhere in between.
That's why you can't. That's why it's like those people that wanted. Was it Judi Dench as Leia and Rise of Skywalker? Like, no. You do what you did in that film with the production side of things, and that's as far as you could take it. And yes, it might have ruined the plot a little bit, but I think Judi Dench would have been a further misstep in my opinion. And so, in my opinion, I same reason I don't think Tarkin should have been non-CGI. But again, you got to be careful with those characters. You got to be careful with them. I think Leia just saying hope in Rogue One was, I think, much more impactful than all of Tarkin and Rogue One, because you didn't have all that time to process the uncanniness of it. And I think, so I think it really comes down to, you got to use them sparingly if you're going to do a de-aging situation. You can't have too much of them until you've really, really, really nailed it. And again, at that point, that's really the issue there. It's uncanny if you have a whole show or a whole movie with somebody who's de-age. I just don't think the technology is there for it to be good. I think it's a better decision to minimize the role, make it a cameo, or if you want that character in an entire show or movie, do it at an earlier period in time when you can recast them and it makes sense, like Ewan McGregor taking Sir Alec Guinness's role. Like, that's fine. But that's how you got to do it. Those are the options, in my opinion.
And here's one hot take I have. I won't explain it because I don't want to spoil it for those who haven't seen it, and we don't have time for another rant. But I will say the most impactful and best CGI person recreation that I've seen thus far was in Ghostbusters Afterlife. That's all I'll say.
Interesting. Yeah. That was one of those movies where I'm like, that came out. I don't care. Maybe I'll watch it now.
It was impactful, I will say that. But it had more to do with...
It gave me emotions that I didn't know I had for that franchise.
Wait, I have a question.
That had less to do with the... Yeah, sorry.
This is Ghostbusters Afterlife. Is that along the lines of... like kind of like a nostalgic connecting this era to that era more than a like recast, like that
100%.
Okay, good. I'm interested because obviously there was that one Ghostbusters film that it got hate for reasons it shouldn't have. I don't think it was terrible because it had women in it. That is a terrible take, but for other reasons, it was not a good film.
Can honestly say I never saw it. Again, not because of anything, but honestly, I don't really care about the Ghostbusters. I'm surprised I saw Afterlife, to be perfectly honest.
Well, then, Dominic, who are you gonna call?
Not them. I'm gonna call somebody else. I'm gonna find other roles that Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd played.
You're gonna call Saul, and you're gonna call Maul,
I'll call Bill Murray's character from Groundhog Day. That's who I'd like to. Yeah. That's who I'd like to talk to. Joel says with a super chat, I'm actually convinced the Lando show is safe because Donald Glover is a big name. Agreed, 100%.
I really hope that again. It's kind of a little unfortunate that wasn't mentioned in this whole big.
Yeah. Whole thing, yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of a ways away, so we'll see. Caleb with the hot take in the chat. Lucasfilm should go back and update the CGI in the prequels and any bad CGI in a movie's post release. Like go back and fix the shoddy looking Leia de-aging in Rogue One.
I love that, but if you want to make it better, feel free.
Yeah,
I mean, well, that's such a Lucasfilm. It's a
George.
It's a Lucas thing to do.
Yeah,
I want them to special editionize the Luke and Mando season 2. That's my wish.
I want them to do that, but with Sebastian Stan. Anyways, I think we've mined just about everything we can from the Solo portion of this, and honestly,
the Force Ghost Fabio.
And honestly, I think we'll skip the Mando and Obi-Wan stuff just because it's kind of retreading
They're
stuff.
Coming. We know it's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
In fact, you know what it's going to be?
Getting all this stuff next week.
1 week, guys. 1 week and 3 hours and 19 minutes until we see not that, but the thing before that.
We'll be watching a full episode in about that time. Maybe 2 episodes.
The one interesting Mando tidbit that came out was that prior to the Mandalorian show that we know, both John and Dave were working on separate Mandalorian shows, and Kathleen Kennedy said, "Smash them together, make it its own thing," and a beautiful partnership was born.
And then it became 2 shows anyway.
Kinda. All right. So speaking of Mandalorian, one of the directors of that show, Bryce Dallas Howard, she's out promoting the new Jurassic
World Dominion.
Yeah, that one with Star-Lord. And
Han Solo.
There was a time when
the next Indiana Jones
were calling for that. But the big question. This question was asked of Bryce by IO9. Let's take a listen to that and see what her answer is.
Bryce, your Mando and Boba Fett episodes are some of my favorites. Oh, is there a character or a scenario that would get you to do a feature film in Star Wars?
Oh my goodness! I think it would take someone asking me.
Okay, that's it.
That's it.
There you
that's
have
it. I mean, I'll ask her. Is that all it takes? Bryce, look at me, right at the camera. I'm looking right at the camera. Will you make a Star Wars movie? All right, good. She's on board. That's our announcement next week at Celebration. We'll get that. It should happen. She's earned it.
Yeah, IO9's article on this was like, will someone please ask Bryce Dallas Howard to do a Star Wars movie?
I really hope that what is happening right now in the Taika Waititi thing is kind of evidence of it. Is that after them slowing down on the films, because there was, some talk about there not being enough good directors out there at the time to make the films they wanted to make. I mean, remember that was well, this is going to be run on take. I apologize. But remember when, Kathleen Kennedy was first asked, where's the first female director of a Star Wars film? And she said, when somebody rises up, we know who they are and we'll put them in there. But we're waiting for the person who we think can be successful there. Well, I just really hope that that's what's going on, and that they're basically using the Disney Plus episodes as a proving ground, as a training ground for various directors. I think pretty much all of them, anyone who's directed a live action a Star Wars Disney Plus episode, I would love to see them make a Star Wars film. And I think, Bryce Dallas Howard is definitely in that top of the list spot for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
And it's worth noting, like Deborah Chow's not directing a Star Wars movie, but she's directing 6 episodes of television. She's directing the whole show. That's right. It's basically 2 movies. So she might not get the accolade of being the first, a woman director of a Star Wars movie, but she's certainly breaking new ground.
That's very true.
All right, let's talk about Star Wars Celebration. It's a week away. We've got we promised that we would give some advice from our decade plus of Celebration experience. And we will do just that. We put the call out for some questions. We got a couple, and we will answer those. But before we do that, I want to pick the brains. I want to pick our own brains a little bit, and get some advice from the three of us from our years of Celebration experience. So we're going to go around the table here, and we're going to give our best piece of practical Star Wars Celebration advice. And when I say practical, I mean something you can bring, something you can do, something you can pack in your bag, or something you can pick up when you get there, some way of navigating the convention that will make the experience better. We're not talking about any of that, oh, everybody just have fun kind of thing. That we'll get to that later. This is like something that you can do that will make sure that you have the best time when you're there. And so we're going to go in reverse order of most Celebration experience. So Ben, as always, we're throwing it to you first. What is your best piece of practical Celebration advice?
That was a really great reason you just came up with to put me first. Like you wouldn't have found another reason. So this is gonna sound broad and maybe a bit spiritual. I promise I'll get specific here. I will say, take care of yourself. Take care of your body. Take care of your mind. Just like I'm looking back on like one of my worst experiences at Star Wars Celebration was
when you ripped your pants.
Actually, that was one of the best. I got a good story out of
I
it.
forgot about that.
Yeah.
I bought new pants this week. I bought new pants finally. Like 4 years later, I bought new pants.
What have you been wearing pants with a hole in them for the last?
No, those are long.
Wait.
I was gonna. Ben's advice is bring extra pants.
No, you don't understand. I don't wear pants. I wear shorts. Okay.
That can be clipped without the second part of that.
Yeah.
Easily.
Just the first.
Go
part
ahead.
of that.
Go ahead. You that was my mistake. So you can take that. As you will.
Someone should remix that.
Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy. I don't wear pants. Yeah. Walked right into that one.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You know what? Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
Yes.
Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
Star Wars rules.
This is momentous. This is exciting. Why, hello there, Ben.
Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
He is the founder of the Star Wars Underworld, Mr. Ben Hart.
How's it going, everybody?
Appropriate, since most of those pictures are from Celebration in the video version. So we'll have to update that too once this Celebration is over with new pictures. Anyways,
and new
sorry,
audio,
Ben.
apparently. Anywho, okay, so here we go. So naturally, after I think it was Orlando. I think it was Orlando where I really bottomed out. Because it was 2 overnight lines in a row, and I was not getting any sleep. Because you don't really sleep in overnight lines. It's just kind of like you lay down for a few minutes, you use your backpack as your pillow, and then you get woken up by DJ Elliott and random appearances by Ryan Johnson in the line. And you don't want to sleep, or you can't sleep. So, there's stuff is happening, and then also you all the days run together. You're not really on a set schedule of like, oh, I got to get lunch at this time, I got to get breakfast at this time. And maybe you don't have a drink with you or something like that. I will say, take time. Go, and thankfully there is no overnight line. I know some of you guys are like disappointed that you don't get to experience that. I get it, but also trust me, we don't want to go back to that, okay? Be glad you do not have to endure that. Be glad you can go back to your hotel room at the end of the night. You can get some sleep. Even after you've spent like 3 hours at the Marriott bar, you can
or
still
the IHOP.
or the IHOP naturally. But you can have that. Sleep when you can, eat when you can. Bring snacks, bring a bottle of water or whatever. Keep it in your backpack. Keep a backpack on you. Keep any kind of bag with you, and keep if you're not gonna like subscribe to a schedule of like I'm gonna go to the food court, I'm gonna go out to the food trucks on the outside, I'm gonna get something to eat for lunch or early dinner or whatever else or whatever. Have snacks with you, something like that. Have a plan. Have something advised to take care of yourself because if you don't do that, you're gonna do like me. I was feeling really terrible, and I kind of had to eat and do some stuff and sleep and kind of like, okay, I'm back in this. Because if you're not feeling good, you're not going to enjoy yourself. If you're not enjoying yourself, it's not any fun. And you need to take care of yourself first and foremost in order to enjoy this. And so that's kind of my blanket like advice is just like have a plan, take care of your body, be smart, don't be like me, and do what's necessary. And and if you need to take a nap or something like that and just find a random hallway somewhere and just lay down, you can do that too. Also wear deodorant.
That is a vitally important one at the end there, for sure. Chris, over to you.
Okay, so somebody
practical advice.
Yanni stole my thing I was gonna say, which is the poster tube thing, because we said that before, but it's been a while, so we got to say that again, because that is a game. There you go. That is a game changer right there, because you don't want to be carrying a big awkward.
Bring the poster. Bring the poster tube back.
Right there. You can buy. It's not too big, but you're gonna come across like you're gonna go to a panel. They're gonna be giving out free posters or whatever. You're gonna want to have one of these like standing by, especially one like this size that'll like fit in your backpack or like can stick out of the top of your backpack. Really comes in handy.
Yeah. So I'll just add to that and say kind of the second thing that I was going to say that's related to that is you do want to pack as light as you can. Like you definitely want, there's important things that you want to bring, like a poster tube is super important. And you want to bring a little food with you because you can't really rely on the convention food. It's either going to be bad or expensive.
Or both.
So I definitely would get some like trail mix or something in there that's not gonna spoil, that you can have all day and kind of snack out of. But you leave a lot of empty space too, so that one, you're not carrying around a lot of extra weight because it is going to be a lot of standing and a lot of walking. And then two, you'll need that space to add things if you buy things or if you get free giveaway swag stuff as well. But I do know that for me, I used to do conventions really heavy. I used to bring like a bunch of equipment and lug it around and had a bunch of stuff in my bag, and my back would just really start killing me by the end of the day. And it really, hampered the experience down. And I remember the first convention that I decided I'm just going to do a day. Oh, and this is a good thing. I know it's supposed to be one thing, but I'll say this. Actually, I think this is something I've not said before. Plan one day where you don't have a bag. Like have days where you do have the bags and you pack light and you have the poster tube, but plan one day where you don't, because it is a bit freeing to have that experience. And maybe have that be like the last day or like after a few days in, so that you've gotten all the stuff that you want to get, so you don't get caught like in a situation where like you wish you had a bag. But definitely plan a day when you go in like light and you don't have a bag, or maybe plan to bring your bag back to your hotel halfway through and then come back to the convention and do the last half of the day like without a bag, because that actually kind of rejuvenates you a little bit, not having that extra weight carrying around.
Yeah. If you're packing your bag, like you said, you want to bring a little snack, some trail mix, granola bar, something like that, water bottle, especially important for this one, hand sanitizer. That's about it, right? If you've got a nice camera, maybe you'll want to bring that, but your phone will do for a lot of it. You don't need to bring a lot of things. You can get by pretty lightly, and then you have space for all that sweet stuff you're going to be picking up. Yeah. That's what you want to do. Interesting, just on the poster tube point, Matthew Hardy in the chat says poster tube can also be good to have to put your lightsaber parts in if you don't carry a lightsaber on the plane to get it through TSA checks without issues. So I hadn't considered that. I'm wanting to bring my lightsaber to Celebration because I want to bring it to Disney night and be in the picture out front of the Millennium Falcon where everybody's holding up their lightsabers, because I always see those on like Instagram and TikTok. I'm like, damn, that looks fun. I want to be in one of those. So I'm just trying to figure out how I'm gonna do that, because the blade is too big to fit in my bag.
Dominic, you just have to walk behind you. I think they're about to take a photo back there right now.
Yeah. Chris is referring to my virtual background this week, which is from, I think, Celebration Chicago. It's just everybody with their lightsabers. I'm like, I want to be in that picture. So those are great things. Yeah, take care of yourself. Obviously, pack light is an important thing. I say have a plan. Have a plan, because there's a lot that goes on at Star Wars Celebration. So make sure you go through the schedule in the next week or so. Go through the schedule. Probably want to do that this weekend if you want to enter the lotteries for some of the bigger panels. Go through the schedule, pick out what you like, pick out what you think is interesting, pick out what you decide you have to do, and the stuff you kind of want to do. Have a look at the show floor, see if there's any booths you especially want to go to, and just make a note of where they are so that you can make your way over there and you don't wind up feeling like you missed something. And so have that plan going into it. Take some time ahead of time to make that plan. Also, be completely ready for that plan to change, and be completely ready and open to the idea that you may think you're going to go do one thing, and then you're going to be pulled aside to do something else. Something else is going to grab your attention while you're there. I think back to Celebration Germany. I was just there at the con doing my own thing. I had my plan of what I wanted to go to. And then I ran into our friends, Kieran and Irish Chris. And the two of them, and we just started hanging out, and we just started doing our own thing. And all of my plans went out the window. But it was a wonderful, wonderful time. And I look back on that so fondly, of just spending some time at Celebration with those two, chatting about Star Wars, chatting about life, doing all the things you can only do at Celebration. And then they said, hey, we're going to go to the costume contest, which I'd never been to before. I'm like, sure, let's go. It wasn't on my plan. I had no intention of going. And we went. It was incredible. There were some amazing costumes. Someone had this like insane Darth Malgus costume that they had made that was like, looked like he'd walk right out of the trailer. It was great. And then this other woman had made this beautiful Padme in Attack of the Clones dress, the yellow one with the flowers, and she talked about how she like stitched on every single one of those flowers. It was incredible, the artistry and the craftsmanship and all that stuff that went into those costumes, and the performance of wearing them as well was just amazing. So have a plan, let that plan change. I think that's the thing. And Matthew Hardy again in the chat, you will not get into all the panels you want to, even with the lottery system. So just be ready for that, and understand that there's so much going on that unless Celebration was staggered out so that you could do everything over like 2 months, I don't know how you would see everything. Yanni also thrown in the chat, see a cool fan panel at least once on one of the fan stages. Definitely, because that brings you a whole new perspective on these things. You know, the big panels are going to be a lot of fun. Don't get me wrong. You will remember those. But the small panels will stand out too, especially if you pick a good one. And you know, on those panels, especially the fan ones, they're just a fan like you, and they'll want to chat about it afterwards too. So that's an opportunity to meet some new people and make some connections. So absolutely, see a cool fan panel is a good one. We'll go to the email questions now. First up from Nathaniel, where does the health and safety check take place? I could find where the badge pickup and activation location was, but there was no information I could find for the health checks. Yeah, that's something we're likely to find out when you get there. The way the Anaheim Convention Center is laid out, it'll be pretty obvious when you get there. You'll likely have to go through some sort of metal detector just to get onto the larger campus, for lack of a better term, that is the Anaheim Convention Center. And I imagine the health and safety check will take place somewhere out there. For both San Diego Comic-Con and Toronto Comic-Con, the two like COVID cons that I've been to.
Let's go to COVID con.
Yeah, that sounds awful. If it was it was outside the convention center, it was clearly noted, and you went there, you showed your Vax card or your proof of vaccination on your phone. They gave you a wristband, and then you would wear that wristband for the entire weekend. If your wristband came off, you could go get another one the next day, just show your proof of vax again. And there was generally a much shorter line on the following days than on the first day. But you just got that wristband. And then when you went in, and you'd have to tap your badge on a thing to get yourself in, and then you just show your wristband and you're good to go. So that's likely to be the situation. You know, maybe they have a different plan. Maybe they've come up with a new strategy. Who knows? But that is likely what you'll find when you arrive in Anaheim. Next question is also from Nathaniel. I see that you need to use an app to reserve lane experiences, but could not find this app. Is there any information about when this app will be available or how it's used? Well, I'm pleased to report.
Wait.
Oh, so that wasn't just me.
No, it wasn't. I'm pleased to report.
Pleased to report.
I was off looking at the other tab, reading the instructions for it, and I thought I ruined the broadcast.
Yeah, me too.
And then I came back.
Whoopsie.
Nope. We're still here. At some point, Dominic will return. Christmas 2022.
This is awkward. Yeah, I haven't even downloaded the app, to be honest.
I haven't either.
Oh,
yeah. It's probably restarting.
Oh, well, let me go download it.
That's a good idea. Let's see how long it takes. So this is the App Store. Okay, so what is there it is.
I'm back.
Oh, there he is. There he is.
Yeah, there we go.
Basically, it was perfect. You were like, I'm pleased to report, and then it dropped. It was perfect. It was perfect.
Wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, I am pleased to report that the Celebration app is available now. It's you can pick it up in your app stores, wherever that is. So they were promoting this app for a long time, and it only just became available this week. So you weren't
wrong. So this is called Star Wars Celebration 2022.
Yeah. So if you were looking for it and couldn't find it, you weren't doing anything wrong. It was the organizers who hadn't gotten their act together in time.
Only 1,000 of the tens of thousands of people attending the convention have downloaded it, at least on the Android store. So.
Yeah, so it's still out there. As for the light speed lanes, you'll use the app for that. Those are 9 a.m. every day, 9 a.m. local time. Let's be clear, and that's a way to reserve some spots in certain panels. I will say, in 2019, they had this process, and it did not work.
Ooh.
And about a day into the convention, they just sent out a notice saying Lightspeed Lane will not work this time. Just show up for the panel and, hope you get in. So, brace yourself for that. The lotteries are open now for the first panel of every day, the big opener on the Celebration stage. Just head over to the Celebration website, StarWarsCelebration.com, or go over to StarWars.com or any of the social media channels for Star Wars Celebration. It's usually just at Star Wars Celebration, and you'll find where you can enter the lottery. You just need your email address that your tickets are under, or your ticket ID, which is linked to your email address, and you'll be able to enter the lottery, and hopefully we'll all see each other at some of those big panels. But that is obviously TBD, because...
And also, too, just to clarify, the big panels are being shown on multiple stages.
Yes.
So you will most likely get a chance to see it and to experience watching it with your group and a big room of people freaking out. You'll have that part of the experience. The only thing that's going to be different with the lotteries is whether or not you're actually in the room where the physical people are on the stage, or if you're seeing just a big screen that is showing what's happening. Now, I will say that unless you are very close to the stage, you're going to be looking at the big screen anyway.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So really, it's not. Again, it's cool to know you're in the same room, but it's also cool to know you're in the same freaking building too.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't get too bummed if whatever big panel you really want to go to, if you get a satellite stage, still go to it. The experience going to it is just going to be, it's not going to be diminished much by being in a satellite room.
And here's a little tip, especially for those of you who are going for the first time. Like, if you don't get into the panel, say you don't get into any of the panels, the showcase panel on Thursday morning, you don't get into any of the satellite rooms or anything, you can still go to the main stage in the middle of the showroom floor and just park yourself somewhere in that area around and get as close to the stage as you can and just stand there. You can watch it, and there's going to be 1,000 people around you watching it with you. So that's going to be exciting. And then usually what happens is, say, for example, hey, Ewan and Hayden come out and they do their thing in the panel. Immediately after the panel comes out is over, they come to that stage. And you will be closer to them at the celebration showroom floor stage than you will be in the panel. And you'll be sitting like 2 feet from them, and they'll be, interviewed by Andy and Anthony, and it'll be great. So, like, there's other ways to have experiences. And for us, like, kind of being there, you kind of go to the panel, and you come out, and you're like, oh, it's a whirlwind and everything's going on. But, like, there's stuff happening on the main stage all the time. You kind of hang out there, and there's celebrities, and you can get right up close to them. You can get a T-shirt shot at you.
Yeah, they got that sweet T-shirt cannon that they've like Star Wars-ified. It's awesome. And the satellite rooms are a ton of fun too. Like Ben, you and I, we saw the episode 9 panel in separate satellite rooms.
Yeah, we did,
and we had a great time.
Like, we were all in a different place for that one. That one was weird.
That was because we
were together for Force Awakens and Last Jedi. They were completely separate for.
I saw it on a TV screen that was like above like a coffee maker or something.
Yeah.
Like, it was that big. Like, it was like we couldn't hear it. Like.
Yeah, well, you were in it. Let's be clear, you were in a unique situation. That was not an experience most people had. You were doing some behind the scenes things. Yes. But yeah, just a real quick note about the lotteries. They are open until Sunday, May 22nd. So that's this Sunday at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. So you have until then to enter. And the best way to do that is to go to StarWarsCelebration.com and then click on Explore the Show, and that'll take you.
And I believe you can do it through the app as well.
Yes.
After you've activated your badge on the app.
Yes, and and you do need to activate your badge, but you don't have to do that till you're there if you don't want to. Mm-hmm. But to get into the show, you will have to activate it. It's important to know.
Well, basically, it's you don't. I think you can do the panel reservations without activating the badge on the website. But if you do the panel reservations on the app, I think you have to activate it first to do it on the app. I think that's the difference from what I can tell. Because I went to go try to do it on the app, and it says activate first.
Yeah.
Whereas if you do it on the website, you need your email address.
Yeah. And if you don't have your badge in your hand, you just need the email confirmation. Because I know, especially for people that got their badges later, maybe through the light ticket exchange, maybe you're international and you didn't get your badge mailed to you. You just need what's in your email. You don't actually need the physical badge. This only matters. The badge matters to get in, but all of this stuff, all the pre-show stuff, you don't actually need your physical badge in your hand. You just need the email they sent you with the receipt. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, because this doesn't have like a unique like number or like, I mean, it doesn't have your like activation number on it. Like, that's in the email. It has a number, but it's for other purposes. I don't think you would ever enter it in yourself. The thing next to the QR code.
Right.
And it doesn't have your name on it either.
No. No. So I worry that we're confusing this a little bit. We'll hit the points as clearly as possible.
Yeah.
You don't have to activate your badge till you're there.
Yeah.
You do not need your badge in your hand to activate it.
Yep.
You do not need your badge in your hand to enter the lotteries. For both of those things, you just need your email. That's all you need. You need your email,
Correct.
either the receipt they sent you or your email address, depending on what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's very clear on the website what you
Yeah.
need for what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, lotteries close this Sunday, 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. So if you haven't already, enter them now. Enter them this weekend. And cross your fingers and your toes. Next question is from Jesse. Jesse writes, can you still have fun without making it into any panels or spending any extra money? Like, what can I expect to see if I just walk around for 4 days? Not that it's my plan, just wanting to fudge how much time I can allot to taking it all in. As always, love the show. And if this email is chosen, by the time it's read, I'm excited to see all of y'all's in 1 week's time.
Yeah.
May the force be with you. Yes, Jesse. Yeah, obviously you can have a great time without getting into the big panels, without buying collectibles, just wandering the floor, wandering into small panels. You'll have a grand time.
One of my biggest fears, and maybe some of my regrets from previous celebrations, was revolved around doing too many panels, being so focused on panels that I get to like Sunday and I'm like, oh crap, I haven't seen the show floor. I haven't wandered around and seen all the booths because there's so many incredible things on the show floor. You got, Rancho Obi-Wan exhibit. You've got so many different things. There's so many panels, so many just of the product and stuff like that. They all have these massive setups, these sideshow collectibles and all these kind of stuff. Tom Spina, all those guys. They have these huge things.
The fan-made set recreations and prop recreations. There's life-size X-Wings and there's a Millennium Falcon photo ops and things like that you can do that are all there. So yeah, you will not miss out if you can't get into any of the big panels. Just walk the floor, have a good time, and and you don't have to buy anything either. You'll have a grand time. Absolutely. And finally, from Nate. Nate writes, I've got a question about Star Wars Celebration regarding your guys' coverage of it. I'm sadly not going to Celebration this year. In fact, I've never been to one. So as a fan of you guys, I was wondering what your guys' plans are for Celebration coverage. Are you going to do daily shows like at Celebration Chicago? Will you be tweeting about celebrations during Celebration? And most of all, are you going to be live streaming your IHOP SWU meetup? I have one request for you guys while you're there. I would see this through personally if I were, but I've actually thought about flying out there just to do this, but at this point, I might as well go to Celebration if I do that. Yeah, Nate, if you're flying out there, you should go to Celebration. Here's the request. Can you guys ask the manager / highest ranking member of IHOP there and ask them live on air if you guys can get an IHOP sponsorship? You guys could just say that since you guys are buying so many pancakes and avocado toasts that they might as well sponsor you. Just tell them that you guys will come over every night after Celebration and have a live podcast from IHOP if they sponsor you with free pancakes. Oh, man.
I would be amazing if that happened. I always feel like people are afraid to do that because they might say something wrong and get kicked to the curb and have to work for Denny's for the rest of their life. But the dark side.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's pretty cool. Cool. So
yeah.
We'll see.
We'll see what we can do. Yeah, I in terms of our coverage, we will, the plan is to do daily pods, but that could change depending on how things go at the Celebration. All this stuff is subject to change because we can't control everything much as we might try. There will certainly be audio stuff. We're going to try to do video stuff. I think basically we're going to have to run some tests on Wednesday to see what we can and can't do once we're all there. So hopefully that will be part of it. But we're certainly going to record the show we do from IHOP. We're certainly going to record more content while we're there, and we're going to do our best to get it out to you as quickly as we can. One thing that's worth noting, if you're going this year, we do not have a booth. You cannot find us on the show floor unless you happen to run into us. That's why coming to the IHOP party is so important. That's the best chance for us all to meet because we will all be in the same spot. So get your tickets. They're still available. The link's in the description. We hope to see you there. And yeah, we'll do the show from there. And that at the very least that we will have that, and we're certainly going to do our best to get shows for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday done as well. Sunday is the one that scares me a little bit, but the other days I'm pretty confident in. We might have to do the Sunday show on Monday, but we'll see. We'll see where we wind up on that. I see Joel is asking more questions in the chat about the lottery system. This is only for the first panel of the day on the celebration stage. So it's the showcase on day 1, Light and Magic on day 2. I can't remember what it is. Mando Plus on day 3, yep, and Bad Batch on day 4. Everything else, you can either use the light speed lane, or you can just line up in the standby line. And if you line up early enough, you'll have a pretty good chance to get in. And we're not talking overnight lines. We're talking like maybe 90 minutes before the panel.
And you should explain how the light speed lane works for people, because that's kind of new.
I don't know how it works.
I don't either.
This is the thing. Nobody knows how it works because it didn't last time.
Exactly.
It's in the app, and we will all figure it out together this weekend. So
we'll try to publicize it when the information we get about it.
Yeah. So for Ian McDiarmid, for Tales of the Jedi, for behind the scenes with the creatures of the Book of Boba Fett, all of that stuff, anything else that's on the celebration stage that isn't the first panel of every day, you just go to it. Line up 90 minutes beforehand, and you'll probably get it. You'll probably be all right. Or when we get there, we can all try together the light speed lane, and maybe it'll work this time.
We'll crash it if we all do it at the same time.
Yeah.
And it'll be our fault that it didn't work this time.
Yeah, that's it. So for us, certainly the IHOP show probably shows the rest of the day, the rest of the days for the convention, and we'll do our best. We'll do our best. As for Joel is also asking about accessible stuff. Like everything, by law, these things have to be accessible. So if you're struggling with that, speak to the staff, and if they're any good, which is debatable, they will do what they can to accommodate. They will accommodate you. And we've seen this firsthand with one of our friends who's in a wheelchair at Celebration Chicago, and there's accessible seating at the convention, and in all the panel rooms. So all you have to do is make sure you speak to the staff when you're going in. I believe when you pick up your badge, or when you get to the convention and you're checking in, you'll want to check in with guest services, because they'll put some kind of accessible sticker on your badge to make it 100% clear that you need the accessible seating and the accessible support. There's elevators and all that, and just be willing to throw some elbows on the show floor to get to get around. And then on the show floor, you should be able to make your way fairly reasonably around, because it's all one level. All right. Chris, any other advice? Anything else you want to throw out? Anything other pieces of wisdom that you've picked up over the years, all these celebrations that we've been to?
Yeah. So I've been trying to think. Every time I think of a new thing, within 5 minutes we cover it.
Yeah.
So then I have to keep thinking of, okay, what's the next thing to think about? The next thing to think about. I would say, I guess one of the things that I kept coming back to, and we kind of touched on it, is this idea of not having specific expectations. Like not being like, I'm going to Celebration to experience this one thing, and I'm going to be upset if I don't get to experience it in the way that I want to. Because, a lot, like Dominic was saying, a lot can change. Things can fill up, things could get canceled. Something will come up and you can't get to something on time, or you lose track of time, or whatever. So definitely go in looking at the entire experience of the whole convention as the thing that you're expecting to experience, not necessarily one particular aspect of it. And then I think no matter what happens, I think your expectations will be met or exceeded if you go in that way. And you really have to look at it as it's an initiation into a lifestyle. Like, I understand that for various reasons, for a lot of people, sadly, they might only have one opportunity to go to a thing like Star Wars Celebration. And if that's the case, then obviously you want to make the most of it. But definitely go in with that hopefulness. Star Wars is about hope, that this is not going to be your last celebration. And so a lot of times you might notice something really cool or hear about something really cool, not have time to do it, or it's already happened and you can't go back in time and do it. Don't think like, oh, get really beat yourself up over not knowing about it. Tell yourself, okay, next time I'm going to do that. Because that's what we do. And so, because we've done pretty much everything at Celebration, but over many, many, many celebrations.
Yeah.
And that's where this experience has come from. It's not just one convention where we've done all the panels and seen all the booths and talked to all the people we wanted to talk to and met up with all of our friends and did all the podcasts and all the interviews. Like, that's the amalgamation of many, many, many things.
Yeah.
So if you go and definitely have that in mind, that you're almost scoping it out as a first time comer, to decide what you're gonna bite off then, and then what you're gonna decide, okay, I'm gonna get more into this aspect of it next time. So I think that's definitely something that will be helpful. And I'm trying to think, there's really only one thing that I regretted. I was trying to think of something that, like, I wish that I thought of going in and I didn't. And it took me a while to figure it out. And then I keep remembering this one thing, is there was a few celebrations where I forgot to take photos with people. Like, I would meet people and I would forget to take a photo of them because it would be like so quick. And then I would like forget that I met them until they reminded me. Or I would be like, oh, I wish I had a photo with this person. I'm not talking about like celebrities, because usually you'll remember that.
Yeah.
Your friends, internet friends, random people.
I had to introduce myself to Chris 4 times. He was like, kept forgetting me. I'm like, we do a podcast every week, and you're like, all right, you, yeah.
So definitely, like, obviously, if that's not your thing, you don't care about that, then it doesn't matter. But if it is something you care about, definitely like premeditate that. Think like, okay, make sure whenever you meet up with someone before you part, say, okay, let's get a photo quick on your phone or my phone. We'll send it to each other or whatever, or both to be safe. Because you definitely want those memories for later down the road when, it's 5 years later and Facebook's like, you remember 5 years ago when you were at Star Wars Celebration, you were hanging out with all your friends? Like, you want those. It might cheer you up down the road.
Yeah. Especially you're going through like a global pandemic and you're like, I haven't left the house in 6 months. And then Facebook's like, hey, remember this? And you're like, I do. That was great.
Yeah.
That was great. Yeah. And I will give the kind of the corny advice now, which is, have fun. Like, go into this with as open a mind as you can. Be, like I said, have a plan, but be ready for it to change, and just embrace the fun of it. Embrace the joy in being surrounded by thousands and thousands of people with what they're who are all there because they also love Star Wars and they want to celebrate it. It's called Star Wars Celebration for a reason, because everybody who's there loves it and everybody who's there wants to continue enjoying it. So I think just go in with an open mind and be ready to have some fun and focus on the good. If you can't get into a panel, well, maybe you'll see something sweet on the show floor. If you can't buy the collectible you want, well, maybe there's something even better at the next booth. You couldn't get into the 501st after party. Well, you can come on over to IHOP and have some pancakes with us. Like there's always something to do. And just because you missed out on the thing you thought was what you wanted to do doesn't mean you're not going to find something pretty special. And just embrace that. Embrace that and have the best time. And for everybody who's staying home, who's stuck through and listened to this part, we hope to see you at the next one. But tune into that live stream that they're going to do. They're going to do a great job capturing the convention. Tune into our shows. We're going to do our best to capture the convention. Have a look at social media. And just remember that for as many people as there are at Celebration. There are as many, if not way more, of you who aren't there, who are wishing you were there, and who are going through this experience together, and that we're all celebrating Star Wars, whether you're there or not, because there's gonna be some sweet previews, hopefully some sweet announcements, and just some fun stuff that you're gonna see coming out of this thing. That I love it. Anytime there's a big con that I can't be there, I love to see that what cosplays come out of it, what panel moments come out of it, and you can really enjoy those too, even if you're not there in the room. All right. Well, I think with that, we will begin to wrap things up for this week. See everybody at Celebration next week, or at IHOP, or on the internet talking about it next week.
We went so long that Ben, unfortunately, he had to start walking to Star Wars Celebration about 10 minutes ago. So he's just on his way now, and we'll be seeing him next week.
What are you talking about? I'm still here. This is Ben Hart. It doesn't work. This bit doesn't work as well with the video on.
Yeah. What we didn't realize is that Dominic is hiding Ben's hair under his hat. And
well,
so...
I'll just channel Ben, like barbecue sauce, Intergalactic Peace Coalition, Mississippi, Biloxi Shuckers. That's a joke from the pre-show. Oh my God, I'm in Toronto.
Oh my God. Oh man.
What a show this has been.
So thank you everybody for watching. At the SWU is our social media handle everywhere. So make sure you follow us, because we're going to be posting on all the different social media sites throughout the convention. So great way to get coverage if you're like at work or something and you can't listen to a podcast. Just scroll through Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, see what's going on. We'll do our best to forward as much information to those as possible. I definitely follow at Culture Slate and at SW Culture as well, because those teams are going to be...
Nah, just follow at the SW. That's all you need. Yeah.
I mean, we all retweet each other as much as possible, but to save us having to retweet every single tweet to every single account, we might miss some. Make sure you're following those 3 accounts, because that's where you do that, and our whole network will be covered with everything that Hannah's doing and Jordan's doing over there at Star Wars Culture as well, because they'll be at the convention as well, and they're excited to meet everybody as well, and we're excited to meet them for the first time in person. So that's going to be super, super fun. So thank you, everybody.
I'm especially excited to meet the Ion Cannon crew. Matthew, that's a guy I've never met in my life before. Definitely did not speak to him on the phone this afternoon.
That's right. Awesome. So so that's it. That'll conclude this. There's Ben, and as you see, he is walking. He's at the airport now.
Yeah, he's getting on his flight.
Yep, that is definitely the airport.
Flight 1138 to Anaheim, California. Now boarding. Ben Hart to the luggage carrier.
Why would you be going to the luggage carrier? You're getting on the flight.
You got to carry the luggage to the flight.
Yeah.
Yo, if you guys don't want to pay to check luggage, I heard it from Reddit. You bring the luggage to the gate and you say, "I would like to voluntarily check my baggage to save space," and then you don't have to pay. That's what I heard.
I've done that when I've been traveling just with a carry-on.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they won't let me take my giant bleeping suitcase.
If you have a bunch of if you have 2 small ones.
Yes,
that's what I mean. Yes. Bring 2 small ones instead of a small one and a big one.
Yeah,
and do that.
Agent Cassian, you're Benjamin Hart, the Star Wars guy.
What the? I thought you guys would be confused. No, I'm confused.
I don't know what my banners got messed up because we had too much news this week. So what am I supposed to do? Oh yeah, thank you guys for hosting. Dominic, thank you for hosting today.
Oh, it was my pleasure. I'm still channeling Ben. I don't know how that happened. Ben, you missed
Dairy.
You missed a spectacular 5 minutes of character work that just went on.
Yeah, you're lucky I'm not. You're lucky I can't see you right now to do. Oh wait, I'm gonna see you in a week.
Yeah. I better. And you're bringing both the top hat and the lightsabers, so I better run.
Yeah, you're in trouble. You're in trouble, Buster.
What a fun show this was. I can't wait to do this in person next week at IHOP and at Celebration all through the weekend. There's not what more is there to say at this point? We'll see everybody next week.
That's right. And you can follow Dominic on social media at DominicJ25 for all his fun posts about Star Wars Celebration. Ben, thank you so much for hosting as well.
Oh, it was a pleasure. I don't know if you call this hosting, but whatever. It was a pleasure. As always, it's going to be more of a pleasure because I'll feel more like a host because I'll see you in person. It's going to be great. And I genuinely can't freaking wait for this. This is going to be so awesome. And yeah, there's stuff that we have to talk about that you guys don't even know about. That's going to be just so good. I can't. Yeah, if I say something, it's just words are failing me now. So I'm gonna let it go. I will talk to you guys in a week. I will see you in a week. I will see all of you in a week, and it's gonna be a great show.
Heck yeah, and you can follow Ben on social media at Ben Hart with no E. I have to say that because it is gone from your name on the screen. Because when you went to the airport, they made it go away. At Ben Hart with no E.
Attention all passengers, If somebody left a black and blue top hat by the
I don't know. What's in the airport near you? I can't remember. By the
what would be by the Chick-fil-A.
Oh no.
Not accurate, but also very accurate.
Definitely not sponsored.
Oh yeah.
Okay, and so yeah, that's where you can follow me on social media at Seek3PO. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Punch that subscribe button. Chewy, thank you to everybody who super chatted with us tonight. We greatly appreciate the support, and thank you to our great channel members who help keep things going here. Make sure you check out patreon.com/TheSWU for our pre-shows, for our merch, where you can financially support us, and cultureslate.com/store, where you can see the entire network's merch, including Star Wars Culture and Ion Canon merch. And of course, you'll be getting to meet Star Wars Culture and Ion Canon at Celebration as well, and Chatter Squadron. So we're all gonna be there. It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be a fantastic time. And that means for anybody not going to Celebration, you got all of their coverage too as well, which I highly would recommend you check out. So definitely subscribe to the Culture Slate YouTube channel and subscribe to all the other channels listed below there, including Star Wars Culture, Chatter Squadron, and Ion Canon, to get all different perspectives from what's going on at Star Wars Celebration Anaheim 2022. And then, as always, swunderworld@gmail.com is where you can send us feedback for us to read on the show. So that is it. We are out of here. We'll be back in person with some of you in 7 days' time, and we're going to do our best to get as much of that content onto the internet, either live or ASAP as well, for everybody else. So for Ben, for Dominic, for all the other fantastic contributors who are here at Star Wars Underworld, my name is Chris, and may the Force be with you.
Yeah, I don't think that's the compliment you mean it to be, Jesse. Great show. Great show. It put me right to sleep. It's better than Xanax.
It's a wrap.